I think we're live. So, welcome to part 2 of this live streaming session, and of course we're going to be working or continuing to work on this helmet you can see behind me there, just in Blender. And yeah, if you caught the stream last night, thanks for joining and supporting all my efforts. I don't think we've got anybody in the chat just yet, but I'm going to carry on where we left off from yesterday. And just to quickly recap where we've got to, you can see there pretty much where we are at the moment. So you've got the overall helmet shape completed, and the next stage is very much to start defining and adding the details, like hopefully the visor in this video, and the hinge, which is that part there with the little screw head. And we've got these ventilation holes and something down here which looks like some sort of stud thing. And yeah, so we're going to continue to do that. I don't think I'm going to do this little ventilation part at the back of the helmet. I don't think it really needs it for this video. So yeah, that's what we're going to do today. So let's crack on. And if you are joining, do say hi in the chat. Good to see you. And we'll crack on. Right, so I'm going to continue now where we left off. And yesterday I finished off adding this part here. So you can just see there for the ear bulge, as it were, of the helmet. So I'm pretty happy with that. We're going to continue from there. So what stage, what should we work on next? And if I just head over to my original Blender file, which was this one. This is my original Blender test file, multiple versions of this. I was trying to make this model, and this is where I got to. If I put that into rendered mode, you can see that's where I've got to at this point. So I'm pretty pleased with the progress, and we're almost, getting to this point in the other Blender file. So let me just switch back to solid mode, and you can hear, and here you can see some of the progression that I was making on this particular file. So that's the point where we added the ear detail, and then after that I added these little details here for the ventilation holes. So I think we'll crack on with that, and then after that we can continue to add this little, if I can find it, there it is, this little hole here at the front as well. I believe that's ventilation as well, and if the cyclist is actually talking through the helmet, that's going to be a good place to be able to hear what the person is saying, right? But anyway, without further ado, as they say, right, let's head over to, I'm going to put this into place here, just so that I can refer to it. Let's isolate that, and let's make these holes here, and this one over here. Should be pretty straightforward, and yeah, let's crack on with that. And we've got 2 viewers. Thank you so much for joining. Welcome. Good to have you. Let's crack on. I apologise while I'm doing this. If I miss anything in the chat, I will glance over every once in a while, so do bear with me as I'm trying to focus on this and chat to you guys out there as well, which is always a lovely thing to be able to do. So I'll crack on. Right, so I think for the first thing I'm going to do is, as always, I think I'll have a copy of it there anyway. I'm just going to duplicate that, so Shift D, now we've got number 5, I'm just going to move number 4 over here. We have that there as a backup, just in case. Let's save that, and let's select our helmet, and tab into edit mode. So, excuse me. So what I'm going to do next is these little bits here, the ventilation holes, and we can do that using some topology that already exists on our helmet. So let me turn off the sub D. Excuse me. We can use these polygons here for one of the holes, and these ones here for the other hole. That makes perfect sense, right? It should be fairly easy to do. And for this part, I will be using loop tools. And if you're not familiar with that, it's an add-on that is shipped with Blender. It's built into Blender. All you need to do is enable it. So if you select preferences and go to add-ons, and at the top search for loop tools and just enable that. and that will give you a right click context menu. Just there you can see loop tools. You've got all these wonderful features you can do, or actions you can do, depending on what you've selected. The one I'm interested in is circle mostly, and space, and obviously some other ones are really nice as well. So let's crack on. So let's start off with the first hole. Let's select these guys here, and let's do inset. Press I for inset. And that's going to be really messy at the moment. As you can see there, we've got some options. If I can move my head out of the way. You get the options down here when you do an operation in Blender, so you can, you know, change these as you see fit. Let's do relative actually, that might be better. Yeah, not really. same thing. So anyway, just create an inset there. Doesn't have to be perfect at this point. Something like that will do. Maybe that big. Now it is a bit tight there, but that's okay. As long as it doesn't overlap, we're okay. So now we've done that, we're actually going to delete these faces. So I'm going to press delete and select faces. Now we have a hole there, essentially. Right, that's cool. So the next part is we're going to convert this, or make it into a circle. So to do that, that's where loop tools comes into play. Now maybe it's better if I put this over here. I don't know. Let's try that there. Yeah, let's go for that. So to do that, you can do it several ways. You can select the vertices that are around the perimeter or the boundary of that hole, or you can go to edge mode, hold down Alt and click that one there, get the edge loop. And now with that done, you can right click, do loop tools and hit space. Not space, sorry, circle. And that creates a circle. Genius. That creates a circle from those selected edges. Now it has twisted that in this way, which doesn't look very, it's not very nice. So we need to change the angle here in the bottom left. So you can change the rotation. You want to find something that's a good compromise between the existing geometry. So you're looking around at the lines you have coming into this from different angles. You want to try and make these as smooth as possible with any luck. It shouldn't be too much of an issue if it isn't. And I've clicked off now, actually. That'll teach me. So if you have clicked off, what you can do is switch to normal, and then select the rotation tool there, and hopefully that should be aligned. You can see there, that's aligned fairly well, in fact very well, to that whole orientation. So with that done, we can just click on the blue line, hold it down, and then just rotate it like that. So again, switch over to your transform orientations, switch over to normal, and you're good to go. Nice. Let's go back to our selection. So with that done, the next thing is to decide on how big these holes are going to be. But that's not what this hole is going to be, as in right now, because what I like to do is create boundary loops around the hole itself, or support loops. So to do that, I'm simply going to press F to fill. No, let's not do that. Let's press E to extrude, and then press S for scale, and bring that in like that. So that effectively becomes the whole size, right? The recess area, that bit there, you can see in the background. So that's the size you want to make it. You can make it smaller, you can make it larger. So I'm going to go with something like that. And then that's quite easy enough to fill now. So let's press F to fill, and then press E to extrude, and up to about there. Let's give it one more extrusion as well, perhaps. Maybe we won't need this. I'm not sure. We'll find out in a minute. And let's turn this back onto global on our transforms. Cool stuff. Let's switch over to my other Blender file to see how many. Let's turn off the sub-D modifier. And you can see there we've got the same thing in principle. We've got a support loop running along the outside on the surface of the helmet, and then we've got an extrusion that goes inwards, and then it just goes out like this. So perhaps I didn't need to do one more extrusion like that there. So that one we don't need. We can just scale that down. Press S for scale, like that, and then bring it forward. But of course we can't bring it forward in this with this transform. We need to set it back to normal, and we can then pull it out, something like that. And that's pretty cool. So if I tap back out now and then turn on the sub D, we get this lovely recessed area, and the topology is really good for that. Works really well. So if you want to check this, as you saw in the previous session from last night, as you're modelling, it's good practice or a good idea to switch over to a different render mode. So keep it in solid and then hit madcap in that menu. And from these options here, a lot of these are fine to use. I like to use this red one here, which kind of looks like a car paint thing, a shiny red one. So with that, you can see where the highlight is on your model, and if that distorts in a bad way, you know you've got shading or topology issues. So yeah, good practice. That is a good technique to test your model. So I'm really happy with that. I think that's great. It is a bit shallow, so I'm going to tap back into edit mode, turn off the sub D, and I'm going to bring that down along its normal, somewhere like that. And let's do that again. Yeah, it might still be a little bit shallow. What you can also do is you can select this boundary loop here. I don't know if I did this on my other version. I'll just have a look, and I did actually. Yeah. So, and the reason being, you can see these ones here, these edges, they're actually this kind of pink red color. And if I just toggle the side menu with the N key and head over to item, I don't know why that's all closed now. Oh, I haven't selected anything. There we go. You can see here we've got a mean crease set to 1. If I put that back to the default 0, you can see it looks like every other edge. But if I alt click that and set it to 1, it becomes a pink red. And what do mean creases do? Well, essentially they help control. They become like a barrier, essentially a hard barrier, so the subdivision modifier doesn't spill over in past that line. So you can see here you've got a lot more dense mesh, a denser topology versus this area here. And if I show you how that looks, if I turn that back to 0, you can see that transition now becomes a lot smoother, which may be okay. It doesn't make a huge difference, I think, in this case, but it does help to control some of our topology there. You may find that you may get a hard edge showing in your shading. It may not, depending on again on the topology and the curvature of your model. But if you do see a hard line, just disable that. Just put it back to 0, and you're good to go. That's all. So let's go back to my our live version here, and I think I will leave that. Let's see if it makes a difference. If I turn that on, and then the wireframe, and then turn this to 1. Let's just turn the wireframe off. And I don't really see any hard edges there that are impacting the. Oh, yes, I do actually there. You can see there. But that might be because I've got cavity. I haven't even got cavity turned on actually, which I normally do. So it just cavity and then type both world and screen. But yeah, you can see there that exaggerates the hard edge there. So perhaps that's not a good idea. Let's take that off and put it back to 0. And I think that's fine. The only one that I will do crease wise is this one here, because I want this to stay flat and not rounded or beveled in. So that's what I'm going to do. Welcome 3 viewers. Thank you so much for joining. I had a bit of a disaster last night where I tried to live stream a scheduled stream, but I did something wrong in YouTube, I think, and didn't select the right source, so it couldn't find a stream, a video stream to source, just a video source to stream, and I struggled for about 15 minutes trying to figure it out. Gave up in the end because there's no time. People were on the stream, and I started a new one which worked instantly, of course, as it does. So yeah, sorry about that if you were one of those people that is here today. Live and learn. So today I'm using Streamlabs. I thought I'd give that a shot, and it seems to work first time. fingers crossed this is actually coming across to everybody out there. Please do let me know if the audio is not right or the video looks low quality or something like that. Please do let me know, because I have no idea what it looks like at the moment. With that said, let's go and make this edge here, boundary, give it a mean crease of 1. And now when we turn this on, I'm just going to turn off the cavity actually. You can see now we have a hard edge there, which is fine for that use case. The only thing left to do really is to turn this into quads, because we do have an n-gon here, quite a large n-gon. So that's an easy fix. Just select these. In fact, let's select that one there. These verts going across there. Press J to join. And do the same left to right. Press J. Now we've got quads, and now we're done. There we go. Ta-da! So that's a really nice way of doing details. Great technique, boundary loops, maybe some mean creases, and of course the sub-D modifier really helps to smooth all that out. So now we've got to do the same thing over here to create the second whole air vent. You don't have to make another one, but I will, because the original helmet has 2, and I was kind of inspired by this one. So I'm going to do that again. So let's select these 4 faces this time. And we're going to try and visually match the size of this one over here as well. Why is that there? I'm just going to try and see if I can take out the I don't know if I can do it in Streamlabs. Try and separate the chat box to see if anyone's is there. I just put in a message myself to say hi. Make sure this works. Bear with me, just still doing this. Let's have a look. There we go. Yeah, I think that chat's working very well. That's good. You can do things like start polls and ask questions. That's really cool. Yeah, anyway, let's crack on. So I'm going to select these 4 faces, which I've done. I'm going to press I to inset once again. And don't go too small, it's going to invert on itself. Let's just make it about there, like we did with the other one. Delete these faces. Go to Edge Mode, Alt click, right click, Loop Tools, and Circle. And let's change the angle. That's pretty much perfect there, I think. Let's go with that. Now it's obviously too big, so let's press S for scale. And we're not looking at the size of the hole, we're looking at the size of the boundary loop there. So let's try and make that as, maybe if we turn off perspective, that gives us a better representation, because perspective will warp the sizes of these, whereas orthographic won't. So hopefully that will give us a better indication of these sizes. I think that's about there, so I'm going to go with that. Switch back to perspective. And with that done, I'm going to press E to extrude, and then S for scale, and bring that in to create another boundary loop, like that. Marvellous. And now if this turns out to be too small or too big, the hole, so we need to create this little element that goes into the recess there. I can always scale this out later on, it's not a problem, using normal transformations, orientation. You get what I mean. So, like before, I'm going to press the F key to fill that now, and then press E to extrude, and bring that down. I've got to turn off this sub-D. So it's about there. Yeah, that looks good. And then I did another one. In fact, yeah, let's do one more. Extrude that down a little bit more. Then we can scale that in, as we did with the other one as well. So it's about something like that. And with that selected, I might as well add the mean crease to the edges there of that n-gon that we've got selected. That's cool. All that's left to do is switch to vertex mode, 1 on the keyboard, and make this n-gon into quads. So with those 2 selected, press J. There we go, lovely. And Oops, that looks a bit weird. What have I done there? Let's just turn that off. Is that too deep? If you want to know the depth of that, you can use the measure tool. I don't know if that will work, but let's try it. I'll use vertex snapping, I hope. And if I click, well, I'm not going to use snapping on. If I click there, oops, maybe to click and drag. Can I delete the, there's the ruler data. Is that what I'm looking at? Nope, I don't know. If I click and drag here anyway, that's a length of 0.039. So, yeah, so 0.039. If I head over to the other one, that one's 0.463, so that's way bigger. So I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller. Select that edge loop. In fact, let's select the faces, that'd be easier. Select the move tool and using our normal transform orientation, let's bring that out around there. And I'm going to leave it there. I think that's going to be fine. Although we did get some weird shading when I did the sub-D. No, it's fine. Would you believe it? Okay. Yes, actually you can see it there as well. That's probably because when it's subdivided you get this kind of weird quad in the corners there. But that's fine. You're not going to see this area anyway. It's a grid fill. That's perfectly fine. That is cool. Lovely. So that was easy. Are you impressed yet or what? Excuse me. If you're in the chat, you're more than welcome to say hi. We're lovely to see you guys. So yeah, that's that detail done. Well, while we're talking about recesses, let's create the one at the front of the helmet, which is the one over here. You can see there where the mouthpieces, essentially, where the mouth would be. And that should be quite easy. And like before, I'm going to make a copy of the helmet as a backup. So Shift D, right click, and let's select number 5 and move it. Let's switch it to global. Let's move that over to the side there. You can see we're getting quite a collection of helmets over here. Let's select all of these and move them over here. A bit more out of the way. Lovely. Let's bring that into focus with the one on the numpad with that selected. Let's hit save and tap into edit mode. And we want to select some edges here. In fact, we don't even need to select all of these faces actually, not edges. We can just select these two, I think, and get away with that. Because it is quite a thin hole, right? So let's go with that. So again, like before, we're going to use the inset tool, or the inset command action. So press I. Now you'll notice there we've got the inset, and it's actually, we want this edge to be on this side here. We don't need this polygon. So you can hit boundary. But it's weird, if I turn boundary off, it does that. But if I want boundary to be on, and it does that. In my mind, that should be flipped the other way around. But as you're doing an inset, if I just do it again now with these polygons, if I do it here actually, if I press I and press B, that's the default. But if you press B, it should go to the boundary edge there, which is exactly what you want. So I'll undo that. So there's our inset there. Lovely, very nice. And let's also select these verts here actually. I'm going to do something I haven't done before and just do relax, or maybe that'll straighten those out a little bit nicer. Just check the side view. Yeah, that's fine, I think. Anyway, what we want to do now is make these all line up essentially. So I'm going to use, let's go to press 1 on the numpad, and then if you're looking at the model in the wrong way, you can't see through it, just do Control 1. And that will flip the view essentially. So I'm going to click this vertex there and press GG, and that's for edge and vertex sliding. I'm going to move that up to about there. You can also use spacing as well with the loop tools, but in this instance I think that's going to work better if we just do this manually. So let's select that one now, press GG, move that down, and this one can go up, GG. This one as well. Oops. I've got snapping on, haven't I, here? Oops. Turn it off. GG. Move that up. I think that's straight, is it? Let's have a look. Pretty much. Just going to draw a box to see if it's straight. Yeah, that's pretty good. So that's a good start for our recessed hole. Again, I want to create a boundary loop. But that could be the boundary loop. So maybe we don't need that, but I might just do it anyway. I'm going to select these edges, sorry, and press GG and see if this will slide them out a little bit more, like that. A little bit bigger than we had them before. So I'm going to switch over to face select now, and with those selected I'm going to press I to insert and make them about so big. That's pretty good. And with those selected again, I'm going to press E to extrude, and it's going to extrude along the y-axis. If you're not sure, just press Y again, and there you go. That's actually going to on the world axis. Yeah, which is what we want. So I want to move that inwards to about there. Let's turn off the sub D. You can see that better. So that's essentially what I've done there. It's a bit like the if you're familiar with comics and all that stuff. Iron Man, the superhero, he's got that mouthpiece, hasn't he? The square one, back in the day. So that's essentially what that is doing on this helmet. Same thing really, which is quite cool. When you do an extrusion like this on a boundary edge, sometimes you will get an edge being created in that gap there, which obviously you don't want. And yeah, you don't want an edge to be in that hole there. Just look out for that because it will cause glitches. So with that done, if I turn on the sub D now, we get this. I'll just turn off the, there we go. So you get that. It's not quite there, but it's, I mean, that's fine, probably as it is. We can probably tidy that up a little bit more. Let me switch over to see what I did on my original test file. If I can find my Blender session, there it is, over here, Blender file. So let me just see what I've done on this one. Tap into edit mode, turn off the sub D. Essentially the same thing, right? In fact, exactly the same thing. Not much difference. There's our boundary loop. Oops, let's go to 3. Face select. There's our boundary loop, and there's another one there on the inside. So that's very basic stuff. If you wanted to, you can press Ctrl R and create another boundary loop like that there as well. So that's that. So we've done that already, essentially. So that's pretty cool. Now I do feel like this hole might be a little bit too big. It should be only from here, I think. So this part here, excuse me, this part here needs to be over here, is basically. So what I'm going to do is select that face there and use normal transformation. And that hasn't quite worked. Well, it has, but it's kind of, yeah. I know what I did there. I did that wrong, didn't I? So let's go back a little bit. You could do this by eye. You can select that face and just move it by eye. Now move it along the axis like that, and then bring it forward like this. And that will work as well. So you could do that. That's not a problem. Another way to do it would be to delete these faces here. In fact, let's grow the selection by hitting numpad plus. And let's delete that. Delete these faces. And I'm going to select, I'm going to fill these back in again. So I'm going to press F here and then F there. And the reason I'm doing that is because I can now select this edge and press GG and slide it across, following that surface. Do the same for this one, so press GG. Obviously that's too small. Let's scale that up. Let's make sure we go back to global transform. Press S for scale. And that's basically what we've got now. So that's a really quick fix. Select these faces again. And this time I'm not going to press the global, I'm going to keep it on its local. So select that one first, that one second. Press E to extrude. actually there's a better way to do this. Undo that. But yeah, let's select both of those faces, and then do, rather than just pressing E to extrude, I'm going to press Alt E, and that will give up the menu, bring up the menu here. I'm going to select extrude faces along normals, and that's probably what I should have done in the first place. So let's just do that. About there. There we go. And I think I will add an edge loop along there, a supporting edge loop, just there. And in fact, I'm going to change that and give it a mean crease of 1. So we'd have a nice flat area over here. Let's do the same for these ones here. Change add a mean crease of 1. Now, if we go back to object mode and turn on the subdivision modifier, you can see we have that. If I put on 3 levels of sub D, that's looking really nice. We've got a bit of a pinch there. I can see something here, you can see it there. Not ideal. Let's see what we can do. Yeah, you can see it's kind of sticking out there. Let's turn that off. So we can clean that up, and maybe we can actually add, on this edge loop here, let's try and add a mean crease of 1 and see how that behaves. Turn off the wireframe. That's pretty much the same thing really, isn't it? So yeah, that's the same thing. And that's probably okay actually. Not too bad. Probably what you want to do here is you could add more edge loops to support this. So you could add an edge loop here, and or even there, but I don't think I'll need to do that. If I do that there, what does it look like now? Yeah, I mean it's kind of made it a little bit worse, more obvious. I think we're just going to go with that, and that will be fine. We won't notice that. But I'm not happy the way this sticks out there. You can see there, it's sticking out like a lip, and we really don't want that. So if I go to the side view by 3 on the numpad, turn off our subdivision, and it's doing that because we've got this hard edge, I think. So let's disable our mean crease there. Let's turn that back on. Yeah, and I think that's helped a little bit, but it's still doing it in places. So yeah, you can fiddle around with this stuff a little bit. Maybe bring that one in, or take that mean crease off as well, and see if that makes a huge difference. A little bit, still not ideal. So feel free to adapt this and do other things with it. That's up to you, totally fine. So I'm not going to go to the trouble of actually trying to smooth that out. There are ways to do it, but I don't think I will do it in this session. And to do that, as I say, you could create a cut from here down to that point there, and then down here, and that would leave you with some cleaning up to do on this side, because you will have a triangle here. On this, you can see a triangle there and a triangle here, which you don't want really for sub D workflow. So you will clean that up in some other way, and I don't think I will do that in this video because I'll end up taking too much time and boring you to tears. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to leave that as it is. I think we're going to go with that. If we check our math cap again to see how that's looking, yeah, it's not great. Just curious to see what it looks like on my other one. So that one doesn't have that problem, which is odd. So what have we done differently on the original one? Nothing. It's simply because this edge loop, this is actually much higher, this edge loop there, than the other one I've got. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one we've got 1, 2, 3. Yeah, you can see there the distribution of the edges is vastly different. So that's the reason it's causing that. That's an easy fix because these are actually compressing and causing some stress here. So what we want to do is manipulate these, and just with those selected, press GG. I'm going to move these up, give it more space to work with, and move these up, distribute them evenly, like that. I might come to regret that later because I wanted that for the trim, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. Do the same for these ones. So GG, bring them down. Let's give it more space down here maybe. We've got a lot more space to play with. Select these, GG, halfway. Like that. And that should, yeah, that's much better. It's still there, but it's so flattened out now you can't really see it. Cool, let's go with that. And that's good. So let's save our work and make another copy. Shift D, right click, and then move the previous one over to our army of helmets on the other side. Wonderful, let's make some more space over there. What's next? So we've got that, we've got this. This one over here, let's try to see where that goes. If I turn on X-ray, we've got a recessed area here. So with our helmet selected, let's turn off the subdivision, tab into edit mode, and we can see the kind of topology we have to use here, or we can use. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere really. So I'll probably have to use either these two edges or even faces, or these four, and actually put it maybe slightly more in this area, which is fine, and I might do that. So with those four selected, I'm going to press I to insert. Now we get this, you can see the overlapping now. Let's leave it there. This might be a problem, but we'll figure it out as we do it. Let's turn off X-ray. So now you can see we have that where the little dentation is going to be. So as before, we're going to delete these faces. So press delete faces. Switch to edge select, 2 on the keyboard. Alt right click, sorry not Alt right click, Alt left click. Select the edge loop, and then go to loop tools, right click, circle. And of course that's fine, but the angle is all wrong again. So let's have a look at our optional properties down here. Let's twist this around until we get something that works well. So you don't want to go too far the other way. Maybe something like there. Let's go with that. That's cool. And clearly this is too big. You could actually move that, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to scale it down. Something like that. Again, I'm thinking about keeping a boundary loop, as I like to do. So that's probably big enough. So I'm going to press E to extrude, S for scale, and create a nice boundary loop around that hole there. Cool stuff, eh? I hope. Like before we did with these ones here, it's exactly the same process. Rinse and repeat, as they say. So switch into edge select mode, or click this one. I'm going to press F to fillet, not fillet, fillet. E to extrude, and bring that in about there. Then create an inset, so it's I to insert that. And again, I'm going to create or add an increase of 1 to those edges inside that recessed area there. And let's just make these quads. So let's select these two here, these verts, press J, and then these ones here, press J. There you go. Let's turn back on our sub D, and we have that lovely hole just there. It's not perfect, but I think that's pretty good. Let's have a look at our wireframe. And the reason it looks so dense is because I've got optimal display turned off in the subdivision modifier. If you're not sure what that is, that just means that it just makes it easier to see what's on your screen, right? Yeah. So if I turn that off, you can actually see the topology. Blender will actually render. That rhymed. I'm a genius. Blender will render in real, when it comes to render time. So that's what it's actually calculating, all of these faces. So yeah, just be aware of that. That's pretty good and highly detailed. Lovely. Let's turn our wireframe off. And crack on, as they say. So I'm happy with that. make another copy, Shift D, right click, and select the previous version and move it over there. I know it seems like a lot of copies, but you know, if you miss like a couple of versions, if you start adding more detail and then hit a problem later on, you need to go way back for whatever reason. Maybe you're adding more edge loops, and then like that, you need to start over. You can start over with one of these rather than, you know, having to go back and add a lot more stuff, basically from scratch. Give a safety net, really. Right, what's next? Well, let's create the little items for this area here. And that's really easy because we're going to borrow, we're going to use the borrow from existing topology technique. So let's zoom in here, switch to face select, and we're going to turn off the subdivision modifier there. And I just thought of something that, because if you do it this way, the object you create in this hole won't have any proper rotation information because it's created aligned to this topology. So it would be completely off when it comes to its rotation. You want to align that with the other one over here. So I think what I'm going to do instead is actually model it outside of this rather than borrow topology like I did in my test, because I had to then fix the rotation of the object, and that took a few minutes to do. And that was a bit painful, to be honest, a bit confusing. So I'm just going to make sure that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, an 8-sided cylinder to use for that. So let's first of all select that vertex in the middle, press Shift S, and that will bring up the snap menu. And I'm going to select cursor to selected. And that will put my 3D cursor at that point there. Now we can tab out of the object. And now if we add a cylinder, that's where it's going to be added. Okay, so I'm going to use my add-on to add that. Obviously if you don't have the add-on, Shift A, cylinder. So I'm going to hit cylinder there and change its values to, we said 8 verts. Excuse me, goodness me. Change the depth, something like that. And of course the radius needs to be way down. Let's bring that into focus, and the radius could be a little bit bigger there, perhaps. And the depth a lot smaller, so something like that is fine. Now, the fact that we've still got our 3D cursor at that point, we can just move this out of the way for now, so we can see what we're doing. And we can always snap it back to that point by doing Shift S, select the object, Shift S, selection to cursor. So don't worry about if you have to move it out of the way. Right, with that selected, let's have a look at our, I was going to say reference material, but let's go to my other file. If I can find it, our Blender file. Did I close it? No. So I'm on the actual file here, aren't I? Oh, goodness me. There we go. I just had it hidden. Yeah, so this is essentially what we're going to create. If I move that out of the way, turn off the sub-D, let's turn off the mirror as well, so I don't want to focus on that. We just have a bunch of very simple shape here, and obviously the back has got a hole in it. So you just want to create like it goes up a little bit, and then goes out and around, and then inwards. There's quite a few loop cuts here, support loops, because it has a very specific type of shape, and it looks something like that. Right. So that's what we're going to do on the other one. So I'm going to keep that here as some of my reference there. Right, let's head back to the live version. So with that selected, let's tab into edit mode, select that face, and let's just bring that down to about there. Let's make it something like that. And let's press I to inset. And let's just get the overall shape first. So if I make the hole in the middle, which is about that big, so a bit larger, something like that, then we can move that up to create this part there. Now if we add the sub D modifier, give it 2 levels, right click the shade smooth, you get a very flat, squashed sphere essentially. So we need to add a lot more detail to this. So first of all, let's add a very tiny area of flatness to that at the top there. So what I could actually do is, let's make that a little bit larger. Then press I to inset and that becomes our flat area there. Let's switch over to edge select. Let's turn that off. Perhaps that make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, something like that. And this one here, maybe make that a touch bigger as well. So that area there is going to be the hole where you have this little grill to let the air in to the helmet. So with that done, let's just press E to extrude. Bring it down. Oops, got a side view, X-ray on. You can see that's where the line is. Somewhere there is fine. Sorry, I had wireframe, didn't I? Studio, there we go. Solid mode. And let's create another inset. And that's going to become a support loop there. So let's do mean crease of 1. We want that area to remain flat. Okay, not rounded and smoothed off. So by adding a mean crease, the subdivision modifier won't spill over into this area, it'll keep it nice and flat. But everything else will be smoothed off, as you can see there. So that's why I added, this looks like a button now, or something like a dinghy even. That's why I needed to add like a bevel, essentially, support loops to this one. So if you select this edge loop there at the top and hit Control B, so Control B to bevel, give it 2 segments, scroll your mouse wheel to get 2 segments, like that. And then a good tip here is to, under the profile shape for the bevel options, set that to 1. And that just puts the support loops either side of that original edge loop. So if we go back to, well, let's add another edge loop down here actually. So Control R, let's add one about there. Turn our sub D back on now. We've got a much nicer or a tighter bend at the top there, or ridge. But we also need to see this ridge a little bit stronger as well. So let's make that a little bit larger maybe. And we could add a mean crease of maybe 0.5 or something like that. I don't usually do half numbers. You can see there that gives it more of a ridge, which works really well actually. So I could just do that. But in this case, I think I'm just going to add a loop cut to this one as well. So I'm going to select that edge loop, Control B, and add support loops either side of that as well. Like that. Now we have that ridge going on. That's essentially it. The other thing we need to do is tidy up the back, because that bottom part here is rounded off as well, or down here. We don't want that. So we can select this bottom face and press I to inset and delete that face. I mean, you could just delete these as well and just be done with it, but I want to add a bit overkill. I want to add a little bit of a rounded bevel to that as well. So switching over to edge select, alt click, Control B, and give it some support loops. Like that. And that will do. Wonderful. Now the tricky part now, let's save that. I was going to say, don't forget to add your, rename your stuff and put that into the helmet collection. And let's call that, vent base, because that's the base for the vent, right? I don't know. Now the tricky part is going to be rotating this to match the rotation of that of that one there. So I'm sure there are much better ways to do this than the way I'm going to show you. Just trying to think of another clever way to do it. Perhaps not, but we can use the 3D cursor to do that. And if I select these edges and zoom in on them, deselect them. Now, ideally, you can see our cursor, our 3D cursor, has got these crosshairs as well as the red and white circle. And we want these crosshairs to be aligned with the normals of that object. And then we can snap this to the 3D cursor using that orientation of the 3D cursor, if that makes any sense. So what I'm going to do is, well, firstly, if you right click, shift right click, that will move the 3D cursor and place it onto the surface of any part of your model. So if I do that over here, you can see it snaps onto that surface there. Let's come out of that. So yeah, you can see there. Now the thing to notice here is that as I do that, the 3D cursor is actually rotating to match the normal of the point at which I clicked on the model. So that's actually pointing in that orientation from that point on the model. And that isn't by default, doesn't happen by default in Blender. What you need to do to get that to behave like that is you can change something in the preferences under, I think it's key map. And if you search in the name there, 3D cursor, you get these options. Make this a little bit bigger. Make sure my head's not in the way. And under these, you can see there, we've got mouse, shift right mouse, and that will move the 3D cursor. And under here, you can see we've got orientation. And by default, I think that might be set to either view or none or transform. I can't remember. It would be one of those. But I set it to geometry. So the orientation of the 3D cursor will match the geometry on which you click. That's basically what that does. And you may want to check other options here to make sure that isn't anywhere else as well. So maybe under this one, yeah, I've set it there as well. So this one and that one. Set it to geometry and then save preferences. So that's why this works. Now the tricky part is, well, the only problem I find is that if you select the vertex like this and do Shift S, cursor to selected, the cursor doesn't match the orientation of that normal under the surface, which I found a bit weird. It's like, why wouldn't it do that? So a bit disappointed to do that. So what I did in the end was literally zoom in and then shift right click on that point there. And now that 3D cursor is pointing with the normals of that surface. So with that done, let's tab out of object mode. Well, it doesn't have to be in object mode, you can do it in object mode. Select that one, and let's see if I place that there and exhibit the inherit the rotation of the 3D cursor. I doubt it, but let's do that. Shift S, selection to cursor. And of course it doesn't do anything with rotation. So that's not really going to work. This is what I was afraid of, really. However, there is another way you can do that. Let's move that to the side again. Now, because our 3D cursor is orientated, hopefully in the right way, what I'm going to do is add a dummy object. It could be anything, but I will add a cube. There's our cube. Now, at the moment, it's just flat like this. I know, sitting in the air. And you can notice here, before you click away, alignment, and that's the part you want to actually change to match the 3D cursor. And suddenly you see that's actually, hopefully, aligned to that area or recess in the hole in the helmet. So if I press scale now, let's change the size of this cube. Bring it all the way down. We can see there, bring it into focus. That's actually a pretty good fit. So the rotation of that cube now, we can copy and add it to this. So this object can now copy the rotation of that cube and it will fit perfectly in that hole. So to do that, you can actually either do it manually. So if you select the cube, you can see here we have the rotation information just up here. So you can copy that one by hovering over this, like the X. Hit Control C, select your cylinder, Control V, select your cube, copy this, paste it there, copy that, paste it there. Oops, oh, I'll paste it here, paste it there. So there you go, you can do it that way. And now all you need to do is do Shift S to select it. Oops, to cursor. Oh my gosh, I've done the cursor in the wrong place. Let's put the cursor back here. Right, and then do Shift S, selection to cursor. So now we've got our cylinder in that hole there. Right. Now the easier way to do that, rather than copying each of these values, if I reset the rotation for all of those by pressing backspace when I'm hovered over this area here. So what you can do is, if you go into preferences and add-ons, search for something called copy attributes menu. Maybe even this one, I'm not sure, but I think this one here is the one that I used. So copy attributes menu, and that will allow you to copy things like scale, rotation and other values from one object to the other very easily. So if I get this right, let's move the cube. It doesn't have to be here now, let's move it here. And you can see the rotations separately. So if you select this one first and then the cube and then do copy, so Control C, a menu opens up that says what do you want to copy, which attributes, and I'm going to select rotation. And that's it. That's now rotated exactly the same, as you can see there, as the cube. How neat is that? It's awesome. All that's left to do now is delete the cube. Don't need that anymore, we've used that to serve the purpose. Select this one, Shift S, selection to cursor. And there it is in our recessed hole. Now it is obviously in the wrong place. You can see it's going right through the bottom of that because the cursor's there, and we need to move that along its local axis. So if we switch our transformations to local, we can now move that out, something like that. If that's too big for you, which it is, just press S for scale and make it fit nicely within that recess there. Now it is going through the back end of that recessed hole. That's maybe because, let's move it out, we can move it back in again. That might be too deep. So what you can do is very easily select some faces along the bottom there, Control plus on the numpad to grow the selection, and we're still in local transformation. So we're going to move these up to around there, and then this edge loop can go out to there, maybe make it a little bit smaller, a bit more rounded like that, and that's pretty cool. That's way nicer. So now we can put it back inside the hole. Let's bring it in and something like that. Is that sticking out too much? Let's just leave it there. So obviously the radius of the helmet hole itself, i.e. this part here, is too big, so we can actually make these a little bit larger so we're not clipping through like that. Do the same on this one. Let's scale that out, and now you can see it's not clipping through that point there. That shouldn't even be a mean crease anymore actually. Let's get rid of the mean crease now, so it's making it look a bit weird, like so. And what I'm going to do is bevel it. So Control B, add some bevel. There you go, lovely. That's looking really nice. I hope you'll agree. So the next part is to model the little grill that goes inside that little bit there, right? You can see that on the, barely see it on the helmet there, you get this little grill. So I don't know what kind of grill that is, I just made a very basic blocky like grid essentially. And if I show you that over here on the original, oops, there's the grill over here. Bring it into focus. Get rid of the mirror modifier. So that's essentially just a grid, a circle grid fill, and then some insets on individual faces, and that's it. There's some thickness added to it. That's what the grill is. Very basic. You're not going to see that in great detail from a distance. So, but if you are going to render it close up, maybe like this or whatever, you may need to create a high resolution version or add a sub-D modifier to that. Up to you. It should be pretty straightforward. Let me just revert this back to the saved version so don't lose anything. And switch back to our working file. How are we getting on? All good? I think we are. So, and then to make this easier, I'm going to select this object. In fact, I'm going to keep the grill part separate to the grill base, sorry, the vent base, because we've got a subdivision modifier on that, and we don't want to apply this to the grill itself. So the grill will be a separate plane or circle, and we'll just copy the rotation values again, as we did for this one. So with that 3D cursor at that point there, okay, let's just do Shift S, cursor to selected, and that will place it at the origin point of our base there, vent base. Let's do Control A and add a mesh plane, or circle actually. Let's do circle. Yeah. And we want 8 sides again, so let's do 8. Or do we want 8? No, we don't want 8, we want a lot more. So the number of vertices will determine the number of holes in your grid. So we can increase that number quite a lot. Not go crazy, maybe let's try 32. Yeah, let's go with 32, the default. And let's make that a little bit smaller, so not 1 meter. Doesn't really matter at this point. Oh, by the way, I did scale this. Actually, I haven't touched on this yet, but if I go to my add-on, you can see we've got apply rotation and apply scale in red. That's the theme that I'm using in Blender, I guess. That comes with Blender. Now, you don't want your scale values to be anything other than 111. That's extremely important, right? I don't know why I didn't cover that earlier. Now, I remembered I've also scaled this. You can see there it's 0.9 earlier on. So what you want to do is definitely apply the scale and nothing else to these objects. So you can do that one of 2 ways. You can do, or 3. You can do Control A with the object selected and select Apply Scale. You can see there that's now reset to 111. Okay, that's fine. Another way to do it, if I undo that, you can use my add-on, which actually warns you if that's non-uniform or not 111. My add-on will highlight that red immediately, and you can see that that's a problem. So I can just click that and it fixes that, just like that. Another way to do it, finally, is I believe under Object. It's somewhere in here. I don't really use this menu. Apply Transforms. There we go. Apply Scale. So there's 3 ways to do that. My add-on is the easiest way to do it, and you can do that for free with the free version of BB Toolkit. I'm using the Pro version because it's my add-on, so why not? So yeah, let's go back to our circle, which is here. So if you scale this down like this, you can see there it's immediately gone red. If I undo that, it's now not red. You can ignore the location, because that just means it's not at 0, 0, 0. But that's nothing to worry about. Neither is the rotation. That can be red, it's fine. But the scale must be hopefully applied. So with that said, let me select my helmet there and apply the scale as well. And that shouldn't change anything visually, so we don't have any modifiers that relate or rely on or influence are influenced by the scale of the object, is what I'm trying to say. So this is the most common issue that most, I was going to say beginners, but I think everybody falls foul of this, including seasoned users of Blender. You just don't check the scale of the object, and if you don't realize it's not 111, then eventually something will break, and you're like scratching your head thinking, how did that happen? Why is it? What's causing that? And it's as simple as applying the scale. So, which is why I had that added to my to the add-on, because it immediately warns you if I press scale. Watch this over here. It immediately goes red. So that's a telltale sign that something's not right. So yeah, really useful. So anyway, let's select our circle. Let's drag that into our helmet collection and select the helmet collection. Let's rename our circle to vent. Oops. Grill. That sits next to our vent base. And if we tab into edit mode, I've applied the scale, remember. If that was a different scale, I applied that. Make sure it's applied. You can see we've got 32 vertices. And it helps if you do this technique. It really helps to keep these vertices with even numbers, not odd numbers, for the very reason that if you do face grid fill, that won't work if it's an odd number. It needs to be an even number. So with that said, I'm going to switch to the top view, and the reason I'm doing that is because you can see the orientation is not aligned with our world, right? Left and right and up and down and all that stuff. So in the bottom left here on the optional properties, don't click away, you will lose these. You can change the offset. So if I click on here, there it is. So I've offset it by 3, and that gives us this nice grid fill. And that's essentially how I made the grill. So if I now switch to face select, I'm going to select, in fact I'm going to select all the faces first by pressing A and create an inset, or even better, select the outer edge loop. The outer edges, I should say. So these ones here on the outside. I'm going to press E to extrude, S to scale, and create a boundary loop for our grill mesh. Why not? So now we can select these faces in the middle. Now it's not going to be beautiful, but it will be good enough. So there are better ways to do this. So you can select these 4 in the middle, and then Control plus on the numpad. So hold down Control, hit plus on the numpad. That will grow the selection. You've selected all of those inner faces, and yeah, I mean that's probably going to be okay, hopefully. So let me just do I to inset, and then press I again, and that will give you individual inset. And you can see the problem. The ones in the corners, effectively, essentially, are overlapping. So I'm going to right click and undo that and grow the selection again. But this time I'm going to deselect these ones over here that are this weird shape. I'm going to focus on these ones. You could even deselect these guys and just do the ones in the middle, but I think we need these, to be honest. So I'm going to do I again, and then press I once more. Now we have that. So that becomes the thickness of the old grill. Let's make it maybe that thick. And we can delete these faces. So delete faces. Now we have our grill, which looks something like that. As I say, it's not the best technique, but it's good enough for this kind of maybe distance. I feel like I needed more faces in there, but maybe use 64 or 48. But for the sake of demo, I'll just leave it at 32. Then that's fine. The only thing it's lacking is thickness, so you can add a solidify modifier to fix that. So I'm going to quickly use my add-on to do that. So here I've got modifiers at the bottom there. Select solidify, add a thickness to it, whichever you want. I'll leave it at that for now, and click add, and that gives it a nice thickness as well. So that's that. Lovely. I don't think it really needs shade smoothing, does it? Yeah, let's leave that one. It makes it a bit nicer. Looking at our solidify modifier over here now, which has just been added. If you're not using the add-on, click add modifier, generate, solidify. Make sure you have even thickness enabled, and I like to turn on high quality under normals. Why not? So there we go, there's our grill. Let's leave it at that for now. And we want to place that over there now. So as before, we want to select the object, do Shift S selection to cursor. And that will place it at that point. Now we want to copy the rotation or match the rotation of the vent base to the vent grill. So like before, I'm going to select the grill first, then the base, Control C, copy rotation. And clearly our grill is far too big. And remember, if you've just seen that, the reason I can copy the attributes is because I've enabled copy attributes menu in Blender. That comes shipped with Blender, I think. Just enable it and you're good to go. So with that object selected again, the grill's too big. I want to press S to scale. And in fact, before I do that, let's enable, let's apply the solidify modifier. And before I scale it out, actually, I'm going to move that on its local axis. And I haven't checked something in a while, and that's face orientation. That means, you know, which way are the normals of the topology, the faces facing. Normally you'd go up to here to do that. This menu here has the option to check that there. And you can see that everything is blue, which it should be. Everything that's red is the opposite side, the negative side of the face. So if you see red on the outside of your object, that's bad. The red should be on the side you can't see, either inside, the negative side. So I just want to check, because we did a lot of extrusions and scaling, and that's when inverted normals can be introduced and you get a mix of stuff. So for example, if I go to these faces here and I'll use my add-on flip normal, you now got red on the outside, blue on the inside mixed with the red. And if you can see what's going to happen now, if I turn off the overlay, that is terrible. I mean, that's an absolute disaster. And you might be thinking, how did I do that? What's going wrong? Is my model broken? And yeah, I have spent many times trying to figure this out, and I forgot to check the face orientation. And all it was these are facing the wrong way. So if you enable that here, I'm going to use my add-on there. Just select the faces, and you can do face. No, hang on, there's a menu for this. I think it's N. No, it's N, sorry. Alt N. Yeah, Alt N brings up the normals menu. You can select flip and recalculate outside, inside, and all sorts of other operations. You can just flip it there. If you have my add-on, you can just click flip, or you can select everything and do recalculate normals, and that will then fix, hopefully, the error. That's the same as doing Alt N, Alt N, and selecting recalculate outside. That's what that is there. So yeah, do check that, because it's a very easy thing to miss and it will cause problems for you later on. So make sure there's no red on the outside. Let's go back to that. So that's looking good anyway. That's my point. Let's now move that back into position. So Shift S to cursor like that. And then press S for scale. We're going to move that. Can we see that in the, if I go into this one here, you can see if we scale it out, it breaks through. Let's make it slightly smaller, so about there. So there we go, there's a scale. There's the grill added to that part there. And of course, with that selected, I'm going to apply the scale using that, or Control A, apply scale. Lovely. The next part is even easier. We've done that. We just need to copy these over here. And also, let's copy the, let's add a mirror modifier. I'm going to just use my add-on for this, make it quicker. And we want to mirror that on the x-axis, to mirror it on this side. So let's do add, bring that above the subdivision modifier in the stack. And we're going to use the helmet object. Now this might be tricky because we're going to actually have different versions of the helmet maybe. So I'm going to just come out of that and actually add an empty at the world origin. So let's put our cursor back to world origin. So Shift S, cursor to world origin, and then Shift A, empty. Let's add a plane axis. There it is, right in the middle there. Just move it to this front over here actually, so you can see it. And that's going to be our mirror. Let's rename that to mirror object. So we select now our base. It looks weird because we have the mirror, and it's mirrored on its own axis. We want it to mirror off another object's axis, which is the empty. And that flips it to the other side. Obviously, if we move the mirror object, that will move the location of that mirror. Right, let's do the same for this one. So add mirror, select the empty as our mirror object. There you go. Ta-da. Let's just do a quick render and see how that's looking. Pretty good. Yeah, don't really see any glitches anywhere. Lovely. Make sure you save your work. What that's left to do is duplicate these guys. So I'm going to literally create an instance of them. I'm not going to duplicate them and create fresh copies. I'm going to create instances of these. So I'm going to do not Shift D, Alt D, and just move that. Let's put global transforms again. Move that over here, and do the same for the grill. So Alt D, move that over here, like so. Now we want to place these at that point there, in that hole. So let's create, let me go right in there again. Like before, let me switch to orthographic view. I'm going to actually just zoom in as far as I can and shift right click on that dot there. And our 3D cursor is now hopefully in a good spot to align with that normal of that recess. Anyway, you know what I mean. So let's select our objects. Let's select that one first. Do Shift S, selection to cursor. And yeah, let's move that away because we need the rotation, don't we? So the rotation trick, this is a good tip again. Now that we've got our 3D cursor there, let's add a cube. The plain old cube. And let's align that to our 3D cursor. Let's put perspective back on. And that looks pretty good to me. Happy with that. Doesn't need to be there though. Let's move it over here. And now we can select the base, the cube, Control C to copy the rotation. Do the same with the grill. So grill, cube, Control C, rotation. Select the base, Shift S, selection to cursor. And then same with the grill. Let's add that. So I'm going to select this one here, do Shift S, cursor to selected, and then select the grill, Shift S, selection to cursor. And of course that's sticking out. In fact, I didn't do it on this one either. That needs to be way at the front there. So let's do that to local again. Let's just move that out to about there. So it's not recessed as far. Maybe that's too far out actually. Let's bring it in a little bit like that. Yeah. So let's select the other one now. If I can click it, there it is. And just bring that out. Something like that. In fact, we can select both of these and bring them out. Something like that. Yeah, that's good enough. Get rid of our cube now. Bye-bye. Wonderful. Let's put our 3D cursor back to the world origin. How are we doing? We've got 1 hour and 20 minutes into the stream, I think. I'm not sure. So let's continue with the next part. We do need a grill as well over here, but I don't think I'm going to create one at this point. You know how to do that now. Just create a bunch of, you could actually just create, he says, I'm not going to show you, but you could just select these and assign a different material to them, and that could be a grill-like material or just a black material with no specular, 100% diffuse. That becomes a black hole essentially, and that's fine as well. If you want to put a grill, then you could copy these faces here. So if I select both of them, Shift D to select them, and then just put global here, and then move them out a little bit so they're in front of the back of that, like that. Now you can see we've got these faces there. I can zoom in on them. Yeah, you can see we've got some faces there. And you could subdivide these to your heart's content. If I select that face there, and maybe first of all we need to add some edge loops because this one's way wider than this one is. So let's make that as wide as that one. So we go to that view, turn on X-ray. So you could add some edge loops here, so Control R. And we're obviously adding it to the wrong place now. So I have this turned on. Let's do Control R. It's not finding those faces. So probably the best thing to do is split them off to a new object. So with those two selected, press P, separate by selection, go back to object mode, and we now have this object here for the grill, that one there. And it inherits all of the data. Let's turn off smooth, delete smooth. Let's turn off sub D for now. So yeah, going back to this, if we tab into edit mode, you want to add an edge loop here and make that as large as the face on this side. So how big is that? Well, it's that big. So it's almost the same, but you can also use loop tools to space them out. So we select those three verts, right click, loop tools. Hey, welcome John, welcome my friend. Glad to be back, he says, looking good, star. Thank you so much, really appreciate that. Legend that you are, my friend. Right, so as I was saying, loop tools, and do space. Do the same for the bottom ones there. Loop tools, space. Oh, it's so good to have you, man. Let's select all the faces. And we want to create squares first. So let's do Control R. Almost squares, right? That's good enough. One there, and one there. Select all the faces, right click, subdivide, and increase the number. Like so. Leave it at that, let's do that. So we select all of the faces now, and like before we press I, and then I again. If it does that, just press, it's not doing anything now. Press I again, you get individual, oops, there it's going to be funky. Individual faces, like so. And like before, we can delete those faces. So delete faces. Now you have this grid for our Iron Man mouth. And that's looking really weird. That's because we don't have... it's because it's because I didn't round this off. It's not round anymore, it's more... it's just angular now, which looks terrible. But yeah, you kind of get the idea. You want to make it round first and then create the holes. Anyway, that's how you'd make that grid over here, and add the solidify modifier like we did before. That's way too thick. Let's bring that there. Give it some thickness. Even thickness, normal is high quality. Marvelous. Now, obviously that looks terrible because it's not a very good mesh, but you get the idea of the principle anyway. I'm just going to delete that. I'm not going to need that, to be honest with you, because it's not rounded. As you can see, it's completely rubbish. I'm wondering if there's a way to smooth that out, but I'm not going to figure that out right now, so I'm just going to delete it. John, welcome back. And if you're wondering where we are now, we continued from last night, and after finishing off the ear area, I added the recesses into the helmet, as you can see there, these 4 recesses, and the one down here. And then I went along and created this piece, which is like that houses the little grill for the ventilation part of the model. So that's where we are, and we made the one at the front as well for the mouthpiece there. So that's where we're at. Next, should we work on we need to work on the hinge and the visor, obviously, and then we need to start looking at maybe these lovely trim parts, like this metallic trim right there, You've also got the padding around the eye face socket, if that's the right word. I do apologise. Really cool. Thank you, John. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Is there a menu for that? Can I do something with the menu? I don't know if I can. Still new to this streaming stuff. I'm trying to see if I can... Yay, here we go. Yeah, there's a reaction there. I don't know what it looks like on screen. Just selected the heart. I don't know what that means, but it means I love you, mate. So, yeah, we can do some trim stuff like creating some padding, things like that. It's actually not that bad, not that difficult. And in fact, let's do that next, because that's a really nice detail. The hinge is easy, it's just a cylinder with some stuff, but this part here, the trim around that, was a really nice little challenge. And if you were with me yesterday, you remember that I created these support loops around the eyepiece, and it's for that very reason that I did that. So that's why I used that and borrowed the same topology. So let's do that. Make that trim. That'd be really cool. So that's going to be a separate object as well. So not part of the helmet. It's going to be a separate object, I believe, or yeah, it should be. I'm not sure. But we'll see how we go. It could be part of the object as well. But for now, let's tap into this helmet. And let's borrow these guys, this edge loop. So let's do Shift D, duplicate that. Now we have that. Right click to leave it in place, and I'm going to press P, separate it into its own object. So now we have, if I isolate that, we now have this trim area of where the face is shining through the helmet. So now we've got that, let's bring back the scene. We can actually use that to create some thickness and cool things like that. But I do want this to be a little bit lower, so rather than finishing here, I want these to be finishing around there. So I wonder if I can select this edge loop, and I want to actually make it grow. So if I do, scale is not going to work, you can't just do that. But if I do Alt S, will that work? No. Wonderful. Damn it. I'm not going to do this. Maybe I can do GG, as in edge slide, and then hold down the Alt key. So if I do GG, it's going to go that way. If I press Alt, it's going to go that way. Yes. Oh, I'm so, what's the word? Chuffed that works. I really am. It's brilliant. Let's give it about there. And I can select the top edge and press GG to make that, bring that in a little bit. Oops, not that far. Bring it in about there. That would be the thickness of that trim. Now we did make this little bit here a little bit smaller than the other part, a bit thinner. You can see there it doesn't look very good. So I'm going to select these edges at the top, just those ones there, and then press GG. I'll do it in the side view. Press GG to slide. Welcome, Noah user. It says, love your work, have been following your channel for a while, great stuff. Thank you so much, man. That's wonderful. Thanks for the support and for following my channel for a while. I really appreciate it, thank you so much. I hope you're enjoying the content. Good to see you. Okay, so I'm going to press GG, hold down Alt, and bring that out like that. I'm so glad that works, otherwise we'd be stuffed. Oh, I'm so happy right now. So we've got that. And we're pretty much almost there. This is going to be so easy now. What we can do is, first of all, let's have a look at our modifiers. Let's call that trim, actually. Let's call it visor trim. And no user, maybe I've a question, maybe you guys out there, you're a big Blender user, you've been using Blender for a while, and I'm guessing, do you use it for work or just for hobby stuff? And what kind of things do you like to model? I'd love to hear your feedback. Your story even. That's great. Right, so let's have a look at our modifiers. We've got smooth, let's turn that off. We don't need that, delete that. We've got sub D, let's turn that off for a moment. We've got mirror, we need the mirror modifier, of course. In fact, we don't really need that. Yeah, we don't really need the mirror modifier. So I'm going to apply that at this point. Now, there's a good reason for doing that, because we're going to add some thickness to this, and that will mess around with our mirror modifier. So let's apply that, which I've done, and we're going to add a solidify modifier. Now I won't use my add-on again for this, so I click on add modifier, generate solidify, and let's increase the value so we can see where it's going. And it's going that way, inwards, which is good. We want it to be a little bit inwards. Let's turn on wireframe as well. We want it to go in a little bit. I don't know how far. Let's do 0.28. Yeah, okay, 0.28. That will do. Even thickness, always a good one, always. And then high quality normals. Thanks, John. Same to you, Malik, buddy. So now we've got some thickness on the on that trim, but it's not enough because it needs to come out as well. So I found a clever way of doing this. I hope it's clever, I don't know. And maybe it will work if I do it. Let me apply this. Not apply, let me just leave that solidify modify for a moment. And I'm going to add another one. So generate, solidify, and we're going to do normals, high quality, even thickness, and I believe that was, oh, why is that going like that? That's what I wanted, but anyway, the point is, I was going to say, let's turn that off, because that's not going to, that's not going to work, is it? That's fine, I'm doing the right thing. Yeah, so if we turn this one back on now, and we add the same value of thickness, I'm going to copy that value and add it to this one, a second solidify modifier. But this time, we don't want it to go in the same direction, so the offset value here needs to be not -1, but 1. So now, it goes outwards. This isn't working as probably as well as I hoped. I don't know why it's doing that. If I turn that off, it works here, like that. But if I turn that on, it kind of makes a mess of it. So, what I'm going to do is turn the second one off and apply the first solidify modifier. It's probably not a good idea, actually. What am I doing with my life? Excuse me. So now we've got that topology and all that stuff, and we've got actual topology now. So what I'm going to do is enable that, but that's not going to work because it's kind of gone all weird. So I'm going to disable that. I'm going to turn that off. And that's a better way, probably. I don't know how I ended up doing that, actually. I'm going to select, in face mode, I'm going to alt-click on this face loop there. So all the ones on the outside, we want to make thicker. We want to bring these out, right? As you can see from the reference image, it should be coming out. Or I am anyway. I'm going to make it do my own thing here. And instead of just pressing scale, that's not going to work. We're going to do Alt-S, and that will, well, you could extrude them as well. Like you could just do, in fact I did do that. I did do Alt-E, extrude normal faces along normals. Now you've got a thickness to your trim. And if I switch to edge select mode, select right in the middle, Control Delete, that will get rid of it. I love that name. Welcome, Blowmans. Your tutorials are amazing. I'm learning a lot from them. So thank you for your work, sir. You're very welcome, man. Thank you to you. I'm loving the fact that you guys are enjoying it. That's why I do this. I don't do it for me. I do it for everybody out there. And that for me means the world to me. So thanks for that feedback. It really keeps me going and inspired to keep going. So as I keep saying, I'm not monetized. Why? I'm not monetized, damn it. So I don't make a penny out of YouTube. Sob story. Nobody likes a good sob story. So yeah, I do this for the love for Blender really. Anyway, there's our lovely trim. Let's turn on sub D. Turn off wireframe overlays. John says, that's perfect. That piece on the helmet is the gasket. Ah, the gasket, that's it. That will touch the visor to make it rainproof. I'm learning stuff today. Thanks, John. I had no idea you call it a gasket though. I know what a gasket is, but I just thought that was only in the world of plumbing or, you know, I don't know, electrical and other appliances and things like that, but not motorcycle helmets. We've learned something today. Thank you so much for that. That's fantastic. So we've got our gasket done. You can actually make this a little bit more detailed if you like, and I may have done that in my other version, and what I mean by that is rather than making it completely rounded like this, which is actually quite nice, I might leave it like that to be fair. It looks really like a space helmet now. You could, if you want to give it a bit more character, you could select all of the boundary loops or the sharp edges essentially by holding down Alt and then Shift Alt click, and then give them a slight bevel. That's up to you if you want to do that, or a slight chamfer even. So Control B, scroll your mouse where you get one like that, and then you get a much more kind of a bit more definition on that piece. So I quite like that actually. I might leave it like that. So if I turn off the sub D and show what that looks like, I select that. It essentially looks like that. So yeah, that's all that is. That's pretty cool. Although I seem to have two edges here that are very close to each other, which doesn't make any sense. Maybe we can delete one of these. Yeah, that one there. So if I go to, or click that one, and then Control Delete to dissolve it. We don't need that. It just saves a bit more topology, right? The angel emoji there from John. Totally. I'm also an angel, of course. Let's turn that back on. And wireframe off, come out of isolation. That's lovely. I'm really glad we did that. That's pushing me to carry on and do lovely good things now with the other parts. That really makes a big difference, doesn't it, the gasket thing? It's really cool. Let's very quickly do the metallic trim at the bottom there. And again, that's going to be easy because we can just borrow from the existing topology. So I'm going to tab, with the helmet selected, tab into edit mode, select this edge loop that runs along the bottom there. And I'm going to copy that, so Shift D, right click to leave it in its place, and then do P, press P, separate by selection. Tab into object mode, and now we've got the part that I just duplicated and the original helmet. So now we've got that. Let's call that visor. Not visor, it should be helmet. Oh gosh. Helmet trim. Did I call something helmet trim already? No. That means vent visor trim. I'm going to call it gasket. Thanks, John. Helmet gasket. Yes. I feel like I've learned so much today. Brilliant. Fantastic. I'll just give a little heart there. There we go. That's for you, John. So yeah, let's go back to our, where's that little trim thing? There it is, helmet trim. So with that, tap into edit mode, press A because all we've got is some edges there, select all of them, and press E to extrude, and extrude them downwards on the Z axis. So all those edges selected, press E, Z, otherwise it doesn't know which direction to go in, it's all over the place like that. Press Z, and then just bring it down to give it that thickness like we want from the helmet, which you can see in the background there. So that's pretty easy to do, lovely. And if you like, you can actually scale that in a smidge like that to follow the profile of the helmet. I might do that. I'm not sure if I did that on the other version, but I might do it. But let me check the reference again. It kind of looks kind of roundish. Yeah, it's kind of not following the profile of the helmet. It's just a bit rounded off. More pleasure. Fantastic. So yeah, I'm going to keep it like that, just as I extruded it. Maybe bring it down a little bit, GZ, give it a little bit more thickness, like that. Cool. So now we need to make this. What's the word? Give it some thickness. So let's do that with a solidify modifier then. So we've got the mirror, sub D, get rid of the smooth, and right click to shade smooth. And let's go to, I might use the add-on again, just to go to add modifier, generate solidify, bring that up to, let's bring it there actually, yeah, why not? Let's turn off the sub D for now. Now we've got some thickness to it. Let's have a look. Normals, high quality as always, even thickness, and we can give that a thickness of something. Let's turn on Wi-Fi and we can actually see it. Actually, let's turn that on. Let's bring that out a little bit. Let's turn that off again. On, off, on, off. What am I doing? That'll do. That's what, 0.008. Blowman says, picked up the habit of being organised, like naming all the objects and creating collections from your tutorials. Lol. That's great to hear, man. Yeah, I still sometimes forget to rename stuff, and I mean at the moment I've still got everything called quad sphere, and just get out of that. You can see there I've still called this quad sphere. I should rename it to helmet, but I can do that at the end. Although that makes all of these ones a bit more difficult to understand, but I get the point. Yeah, it's a good thing to rename them from the get-go and do it that way. This is what I should have done as well. So yeah, good to hear that you're doing that, Blowment. Good stuff. Going back to this trim, let's just quickly do that. That's not going to be too difficult. We're going to add a solidify modifier, and I'm actually going to apply that again, like so. Let's have a look at our face orientation, and that is looking good. Let's turn that to optimal display as well. So that's looking really nice. Now this one is too thin, right? Because it only goes as far as the helmet rim there. It needs to be thicker. So like we did with this one, with the gasket, we're going to add some thickness to that by extruding. Yeah, we're going to extrude it along the normals. So if I tab into edit mode, let's turn off face orientation. I'm going to use face select, alt click this edge loop, face loop that runs. Yeah, okay, so there's an issue. Let's isolate that. So because I've got a mirror modifier, if I turn that off, when I added the solidify, it added these faces on the ends, which we really don't want. So let's tab into edit mode, select that face and delete it, and do the same on the other side. Oops, there it is, a bit fiddly. Delete that bad boy there, enable mirror modifier, and it still hasn't worked because these are slightly off center. So let's select that face there and bring it into, right, let's do that, into there. Now you could just very simply increase this value for the merge distance, like that. So let's do that. So it's 0.333, and that should be clipping it on both ends, I hope. Let's have a look. Nope, this end isn't. So we need to increase that value. That's probably not a good idea actually, because it might cause problems after. But for now, let's just do that, and we can always apply the mirror modifier anyway. So I'm just going to increase that for now. There we go, like that. And let's apply the mirror modifier, so we don't get any more issues now. We get a nice rounded bit of trim. Let's put optimal display on. Now the issue we've got at the moment is this has actually got a gap between the, you can see the helmet and the trim. It's got a nice big gap there which we don't want. So to tidy that up, you can see it's not actually, there isn't a gap, but because the sub D is making it gappy, it's not even a word. So what I'm going to do is, now we've got that, let's turn off sub D, face select this edge, these edges on the inside of the trim, just the inside, and let's give it some thickness, more thickness. I'm going to do Alt E. Let's do Alt E, extrude faces along normals, and bring that out, and give that metallic trim some thickness. Let's go with about that. Select this edge loop in the middle, delete it, Control Delete by dissolving it, not deleting it, dissolve it. So Control Delete or press Delete and select Dissolve Edges. And now we've got a much thicker bit of trim, but we still have a gap between, or we should have a gap still. No, we don't. Perfect. But what I will do is, I want to make this trim a little bit more, go back to the side view, you can see there, it's probably a little bit more rounded off, not so flat, so I'm going to give it an edge loop in the middle, so Control R here, and probably in the middle there, but I'm not going to bother with the inside, you're not going to see that. So with that edge loop added on the outside, just press S to scale it, or no, Alt S to scale it along its normals, bring it out a little bit, and that makes it a little bit more rounded off. If I can bring that into view, like that, so you can get a bit of a nicer shape. And finally, what I want to do is, the top of the ring, I want to be flat. I don't want it to be rounded off. So let's turn our sub D modifier off. Oh, I forgot to delete this edge loop as well. That's why. Let's delete that. Dissolve that edge loop there, sorry. So anyway, I'm going to select these guys, all the boundary loops at the top and the bottom. And do Control B, and just add a slight chamfer to that. You could add 2 segments like this, in fact I will actually. So 2 segments, and rather than rounding it off like this, make it a profile shape of 1. And now we go back to that. Now we have a much nicer flat top, flat bottom, and a rounded curvature. Nice curvature on the outside and inside. So I'm happy with that. Let's keep it there. Yeah, there you go. Lovely. John, is there a name for this as well? It's not a gasket, is it? It's just a bit of trim, isn't it? Right, decoration. I'm guessing that holds everything together under there somewhere. I don't know. I have no idea. No idea what that does. So yeah, there's our helmet trim, our gasket. We've got our mirror object for mirroring stuff. We've got our vent base, which is these parts here. We've got instances of those bases. We've got the vent grill and a vent grill instance of over here. So we've got a lot of stuff done today. And sometimes I want to let's check face orientation actually. Don't forget that. John says, has no function, just makes it pretty. This is trim. Fantastic. Who doesn't like a bit of trim, eh? Got to turn that aircon up because it's getting cold in here again. Too cold for me. Let's have some water. And if I can ask you guys, if you don't mind, where are you guys from? Where are you watching from? I would love to know if it's far and wide in the world or not. I'm actually in Malta at the moment. That's where I've been here for a few years. So yeah, I'm in Malta. That's where I'm working at the moment. Which is why I'm using the aircon, because it's really hot here. And if I didn't use it, I'd be absolutely sweating. Yeah, where are you guys from in the world? Don't be very specific, just which country you're from. It'd be great to know. Anyway, let's crack on. Let's add some really basic materials to this, just to get some sense of satisfaction, because you need that as you're modelling something like this. We're getting to the point where we can start to see things now. So let's do something really cool. Let's go to shading. So we've got our helmet shape there. There it is. Let's go to shading. We don't need this folder on the left. Let's get rid of that. We don't need this one over here either, but I'll leave it anyway. So there's our helmet. I like to use... oh, John says he's in Malta too. Do I know you, mate? May have bumped into you a few times. I don't know. No, I'm kidding. It's good to see you, man. Yeah, I'm going to switch to cycles because I like to use cycles for rendering and materials. Rendering, that's what it's for. So get nice PBR materials. Anyway, let's create a very basic, and I mean basic materials. Oh, romance. I'm from Sri Lanka. No way. Nice. Fantastic. What a great place to be. What's it like there? Is it really hot there now as well? Like it is here? I think today we had, I'll check my phone now. Let's see what the temperature is. We've got, oh, that can't be right. It's gone down to 28 degrees. It was 36. I don't get it. What's happened? I think my aircon is working too hard and it's cooled down Malta as an island. Anyway, right, let's click on. Let's create some really basic materials to make this, give ourselves a little bit of appreciation as we're modelling stuff and get some feedback of what we're doing. It really does help to keep you passionate about what you're doing as you're working through what could be a particularly challenging project. Get a bit of a high just getting these materials done. So let's do some really basic ones. John says my office is 31 degrees. Oh my gosh. No way. Are you working on a Sunday as well? No. Oh, your home office probably. That's what you meant, right? 31 degrees. That's not too bad. That's not too bad. Pretty hot. Pretty hot. Right, let's click new. And let's start giving our materials and objects as well naming conventions. So I'm going to call that helmet base, because it's just the main. Let's call it main actually, helmet main. But not like a lion. That would be silly. Right. Exactly, John says, at home, fans blowing. Yay. But my fans don't blow. You're amazing. That was terrible. I'm so sorry. Yeah, let's give that a colour of an off-white. Which it is, a slight off-white. And let's turn the roughness right down. Yeah, now we're getting somewhere. Let's give it 0.075. You can see we've got this shiny helmet look now. Steady. We've got a nice shiny helmet there. Let's select the trim and do new. Actually, no, go back to that one for a second, because I'm using Blender 443 as I mentioned before in the other session last night. You want to make sure that your specular is using multi-scatter GGX, and that should be 0.5, which it is. That's default stuff, right? Anyway, it's not metallic. It's not a metallic like helmet like that. It's what's the word? I'm forgetting the word right now. But anyway, roughness is really low, and it's an off-white colour. Let's do the trim. So let's click on new again. Name that helmet trim metal. Why not? That's metallic, of course it is. And we want to turn down the roughness. Let's do the same, 0.075. Now we have that trim. Looking good. Very nice. Let's do these bad boys here. Let's do the gasket actually. That makes a huge difference. So, John, if I can ask you, you're the expert from the sound of it on this stream. What is a gasket normally made of? Is it rubber, or is it sometimes leather even? I don't know. or any other material, because that would really help to dial in the material on the 3D side. It'd be great to if you could let me know that. Let's click on new. Let's call that helmet gasket. Do you know what? I'm going to turn the aircon off. I'm too cold. It's freezing in here. Right. 22 degrees feels more like minus 22. Black rubber, he says. Okay, that's cool. So that's quite a diffuse material. So there's a gasket material here. The colour, let's turn that right down. It's like a dark grey. Something like that. Let's maybe find a light angle. An angle where you can see some lighting on it. So there's our grey material. We've got a roughness of 0.5. It's not too bad for rubber, but we should probably be a little bit higher. Is it a shiny black rubber, John, or is it more matte and diffused? I'm not sure. Let's do 0.65 then for now, until John, with his infinite wisdom, gives us some feedback there. Let's go with that for now. So that's looking good. And finally, let's head over to these ventilation holes. And that one is the base. Let's do new. Matt says it's matte, a matte finish. Okay, great. So I'll come back to the material in a moment. So let's rename this material to matte. Sorry, not matte. Oh gosh. Helmet vent base. And that's a dark grey colour as well. And I think the roughness is quite low on this one. Something like that. Got a nice sheen to it. Like that maybe a little bit lower. Let's go with 0.3. Something like that. It's a shiny, either painted metal or plastic or something like that. Or yeah, plastic, whatever. Let's do that there, that's fine for now. And if you don't want it to be so shiny, you can actually turn up the IOR on the specular, and that will, sorry, not turn it up, turn it down. You can see the specular on that is almost gone now. Specularity is almost gone. So that is what this does. So that you could turn that down. In fact, I probably will for the gasket, because being matte rubber, it shouldn't have a lot of specularity to it. So there's a gasket material, got a specular. So if we turn off, if we keep the roughness at 0.5 even, let's have a look at our specular there. We can turn this down, not all the way, but maybe 0.25, something like that. I can barely see it. I mean, that's not too bad, is that? Tell you what, John, if I put this into a room setting, and it might different colour, but if I give it a room setting, would that look like something you'd see on a motorbike helmet as a gasket? Is that too shiny? And let me know. Does it look soft and squidgy? I don't know. But yeah, we can play around with those values. And by the way, is the audio looking okay? And the video? John says perfect. Oh, thanks, mate. Brilliant. Okay, we'll leave it at that. I'm happy with that then. Cool. Yeah, is the audio coming across okay? I haven't checked. And the quality of the video, is it legible? Like we can see things clearly on the screen? I have no idea. Let's go with that. So we're almost there. We just need to do the grill part here, just to assign, again we're only assigning basic materials to this, nothing fancy, no imperfections like fingerprints or scratches or grunge or dirt. We're literally just making a basic material to throw onto these. So let's select that one. We've got a helmet vent base. I'm going to copy that name, select the grill, put it into there and call it vent grill. Yeah. So let's make that the same colour. So I'm just going to hover over this, copy that colour, paste it on there, and give it the same values, I guess, for now. I'm going to keep them separate materials for now, but I'll share the same values. So 0.3 for the roughness, 0.3, and the specularity I think was left at 0.5. Okay. That was a bit echoey. Wonder why that is. Do I have something on that's interfering with the microphone maybe? Let me just check the audio settings, guys. Sorry about that, I have no idea. Let me check the properties for the microphone. Can't see anything. That would stop that. Okay, so maybe if I add a filter to the audio, let's see what I've got available. Filters, edit filters, add. Bear with me, I'm just trying to see if I can get rid of an echo. I'm not sure. Noise compressor and noise gate. Does anybody here stream and know what kind of filter I should add to get rid of the echoey bit stuff, a bit echo? What if I try compressor? Let's add that. I don't know if that's made a difference. I'm going to add that filter and see if that helps. So I've added a compressor filter to the audio. Yesterday was perfect. Okay, so John, what I'm thinking is that the audio yesterday was going through OBS. This one is actually going through, I know what it is. Yeah, this one's going through Streamlabs today. Because I wanted to see if it would work through Streamlabs. Now I think the problem is, is in OBS you can add it's a noise gate. Let me get rid of the compressor. Add a filter and noise gate. Add that. Yeah, I don't know if this is gonna help. John says, not the end of the world, can fully understand. Yeah, so long story short, in OBS, you can enable NVIDIA's noise reduction in the audio. It does a really good job. I don't know if if I have that enabled on in OBS yesterday, but I had something else enabled that was noise reduction. On here, I don't have that in Streamlabs, so I might have to investigate that and see if I can do something about that. I've added a noise gate. Has that made any difference? Is it better or worse? Give it a moment to get the response. Let me know, guys, anyway, if there's any difference. I've been added that anyway. Okie doke. Let's head back over to our material. So I'm going to keep that the same. That's great. And that is that. And for the sake of, John says the same. Okay, sorry about that. Maybe I'm talking too close to the microphone. That normally means there's an interference from somewhere. So maybe my headphones, if I turn the volume down on those, maybe that's something that's in that. Does it echo now? Testing, 1, 2, 3. Let me know. Probably the same, but you never know. Anyway, let me crack on. I'm going to create a black material, like a matte black hole, to cover this gap here in the mouthpiece, really. Like I said, you could add a grid to this, a grill, and I probably will at some point, but for now I'm just going to add another material the helmet. And in fact, I just noticed it came with a material. Let's delete that. Oops, got to be in object mode. Delete that. So what I'm going to do, oh yeah, okay, still there, don't stress. All right, mate, I'll ignore it for now. Maybe I can leave my microphone. Don't know. So I'm going to create a new slot on the helmet object. So I've got the helmet selected. I'm going to create a new material slot, click new, call that helmet mouth. Dark, I don't know, dark, whatever. Now the important thing is that I have to assign that to the selected of polygons. So I've selected those two faces, select assign, and if I then change the colour of, sorry, mouth dark, like that, and then change the colour, it's not working. I have to assign, it's probably the wrong material. There we go, that one there, assign. So turn up the roughness. If I put it like this, you can see the lighting is, you see it's quite shiny and stuff. If I turn the roughness all the way up, that gets rid of that. Then the specularity all the way down, it becomes literally completely black. Vent, it's a vent. Oh yeah, mouth vent, sorry, yeah. Thanks, John. You're such an expert, mate. Mouth vent, brilliant. Thank you for that. That creates the illusion of having a hole there, which is really nice. So we'll go with that. Could be a fine mesh, so fine as it is. Lovely. I'll tell you what, let's make the circle bit on the helmet. Let me know. So should I do this round circle thing on the helmet, or leave that for another time? Should I carry on making maybe the hinge instead? But let me know what you want me to do. I make the hinge, which is that bit there. I've also got that bit there to do, that's easy. Or, should I do the hinge and then the visor? Or, should I just do the circle for now? John says I know my helmets. Good to know. Good to know an expert in something, right? I know nothing about motorbikes or helmets. Well, while you guys let me know what you want me to do next, I'm going to create... I think I need to create the hinge, because I can't really do a visor without the hinge. So, for now, let me just add a very basic cylinder there. Hinge and visor, okay. Hinge and visor it is. Right, hinge. Let's go back to layout. You can see there, we get some nice feedback now on our helmet. We look at it, and it makes you much turn off references. You get a bit more of a nicer feedback, and pushes us to go further. Right? Anyway, let's go back to modelling. Now the hinge, move that back a little bit because it's getting in my way now. There. Getting on my nerves. Let's turn off selectability. The hinge is quite straightforward. So we're going to tab into the helmet, edit mode, select that point in the middle, and do Shift S, cursor to selected, and then tab into object mode. There's our cursor right there, bang in the middle. Let's add, go to the side view. Let's do Shift A, add a mesh cylinder. We can't see it, so because I made it really small, didn't I, before? There we go. Let's just make 32 segments there, back to its default. Change the radius up like this. And the orientation used to be on the view, let's do that view way, like that. You can see that's the size of our cylinder there. Let's leave it at that. That's pretty good. Turn off X-ray and bring that out to about there. John says, looks amazing so far. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's really cool. Now the hinge is a pretty straightforward thing, and like something in the real world, when you model something in Blender, or 3D, ideally you want to make them, model it as separate objects if that's how they've been built in the real world, right? So looking at the hinge here, I get the impression that obviously you can't make metal and plastic out of the same thing, right? Rubber or hard plastic. So this must be a separate metallic part with a rubber outer part, and then you've got a hole in the middle for the shell, for the screw. So I'm going to keep this really basic though. So I'm going to make the cylinder and then put a rubber disc on top of it, like a turntable thing, playing records on. Those of you old enough to remember records like I do. Good times. That would be our basic rubber thing, right? For the hinge. And it's fine as it is. You need to shade it smooth. But it looks rubbish because there's not enough topology to provide enough smoothing data, I guess. So it looks a bit weird. So we need to tab into edit mode. And I'm going to select these edge loops on the inside and outside and do Control B and bevel it, give some support loops. I'm always going to be using profile shape of 1 and segments 2. And with that done, it is a little bit blocky, you can see there. So I'm just going to add a 1 level subdivision like that. That makes it look way nicer. The only difference now is you can see that our shading kind of spills over into the flat areas there. That's because we have this terrible topology there. The reason for that is because we've got n-gons at the ends. I'll switch to face select. These are all n-gons. So they don't subdivide very well. You can see the result of that. If I go back to object mode, then back on. Yeah, you can see the mess it creates there. So we need to fix that, it's not good. Turn off the sub-D. That's an easy fix actually. We select this face here, and the one on the inside, and delete it. Delete faces. You've got these holes now. So switch into edge select, alt click the edge loops. That one there to start off with. Go to face, grid fill. Go to the side view, 3 on the numpad. And again, I want this to line up with the world. So 1, 2, 3, oops, 2. Fine. It aligns like that. Do the same on the back. So face, grid fill. And then to align that like that. Lovely. Now we turn off wireframe, turn on sub-D. Now we get a really nice subdivided cylinder. Great topology, or good enough, I should say. Yeah, so that's that bit there. That's going to be the rubber part for our hinge. Right? So, next part is, ideally you want a hole in there. I don't know if I created a hole in the other one, I think I did. But we're going to cover that with a bolt head anyway, or a screw head. So I'm not going to bother making a hole in the middle. I'm literally just going to add another cylinder, this part here. In fact, I'm going to borrow this object, duplicate it. Before I do that, just rename it. Helmet hinge. Let's call that plastic. Yeah, let's do that. Copy that, so Shift D, right click to leave it in place. Let's move it out. And we've got that. That bit is going to be the hinge metal. So this one, if we tab into edit mode, all I need to do is make this a lot thinner. And I'll show you a great reason why I use segments 2 when I add bevel, because I don't want these bevels anymore. So for me to get rid of these, well, I'm not going to get rid of these ones, I need these, but I don't need these ones anymore. So I'm just going to press Control Delete, dissolve them. Now I can very easily make this thinner. So if I tab into, well, make X-ray, enable X-ray, select vertices, select these guys, select everything, and press S and then X. It goes left to right. make it thinner, like so. So with that, now we have this really thin thing like this. And that's going to be the metal, right? Wireframe off. Now we get that. Now it is being rounded off too much on the corners, so we do need a little bit of bevel on these. Just select these edge loops like that, and do Control B, and give it a slight bevel. And in fact, I'm going to get rid of these ones. No, let's just leave it like that. Now we've got a nice bit of edge, harder edges, basically, hard surface modeling this is, so you've got some edges there. The other difference now is that this is too big. So if we just go to our wireframe, you can see, X-ray mode, side view, this disc should be that big. So I've scaled that in object mode, so our scale is off now. It's not 111, it has to be 111. So I'm going to just apply the scale. I'm going to use my add-on. If not, Control A, apply scale. There you go. That needs to be up against that surface there now. So do that properly. You can eyeball it, go to the front view again, and literally just do that, zoom right in, and shift along like that. Or you can use vertex snapping up here. I'll just leave it like that, that's fine. Cool. There's our hinge kind of thing. Let's very quickly give that a basic material. So click new, helmet, hinge, rubber, I think it was, or plastic. Now plastic's a little bit more shiny, but that looks a bit, it's not very shiny there. So let's do 0.35, I think, make it a little bit shiny, and bring down the grey to a grey colour. Something like that. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Now this one's metallic, so let's click new, do helmet, if I could spell, helmet, hinge, metal. And that's metallic, so let's do that. And then lower the roughness. There you have this. However, we want it to be like this. You get this, you know, the bottom of your saucepans or dishes in the kitchen, they've got this kind of circular look to it, right? This kind of, that's called anisotropic shading, shading or reflectivity. It's a component of metallic objects anyway. So you can replicate that in Blender. At the moment, it's just like any other metal, and you want that to be more like that. How do we do that? Let's go to shading. Back to our room over here, because that's a good example. So over here somewhere in these options, you're going to find anisotropic, and there it is under specular. You want that to be, and also because it's metallic, I want to turn the IOR value all the way to 1. I forgot to mention that earlier. The metallic all the way to 1 for that. And then turn anisotropic all the way to 1 as well. You can see that effect there. Hope that comes across if I just give it around it. There you go. Ta-da! That works really well. You may or may not have to rotate this or change this value here. And I think the value I need is not this one, 0. It gives me that kind of warped effect almost, bent effect. I don't want that bent look. It needs to be, you can't put it to 1, that's the same thing. Now apparently this 0 to 1 value is but from 0 to 1, it's like some of it is 90 degrees, 180, and then 270, and then back to 360 again. So as I understand it, every quarter of the 1 is 90 degrees. If we put 0.25, that is 90 degrees. I don't know why it just doesn't have another way to visualize that in Blender in terms of its interface, but that's 0.25. Now you can see that looks really nice. So I think it looks great. So that's what we're going to go with on that. Of course, that would depend on what you're viewing it in. You may not always see it. So yeah, that looks really cool. That looks better than the one I did earlier. Oh, my testing. So that's good. Right, I'm going to leave the screw part for this for another time, but the visor, let's do the visor. I know, John, you're looking forward to this. Watch me make a mistake of it, right? Do you guys feel like you need a break? Like 5 minutes? Think of it as when you go to the cinema, you get intermission. What do you think? Do you think you can have 5 minutes to... John says yes. I'm with you, John. I think we should have a break. A small intermission. And Streamlabs has very kindly added an intermission screen for me, which probably doesn't suit my brand or anything. I just literally had it out of the box. Go for a pee, John says. Yay! You know what? That's not a bad idea, because I'm thinking this. But yeah, it's not a bad idea, John. I think we will. Not we will, but I will and you will. We're not going together. Not that kind of romance. Yeah, we'll have a small intermission. So I'm going to click on that now and see what happens. So I'm going to click on intermission. Hopefully disable my microphone. So here we go, guys. 5 minutes. Back in 5. Why is the camera there? Let me turn the camera off. Webcam off. Why is that there? No crossing the streams, John says. Oh man, absolutely. All right, there you go. Oh, there's chat there. Oh, is there chat on the screen there? Damn. Chat box. I can add a chat box. Well, I didn't know that. All right, I'm going to mute my microphone for now. I'll see you back in 5, guys. Thank you. Hello everybody, welcome back. Blowman says nap time for me. Thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate the support. It means a lot to me. And hope to see you next time. So in this video, I'm just going to finish off, or in this session, I'm going to finish it off with the visor and call it a day there. And then come back. Oop. I'm going to come back during the week to finish off the helmet as much as I can. That'll include the padding inside and the material for the circle, red circle on the side there. And I think that'll be it for this stream. So hopefully that all goes well. Just let me know, guys, if the microphone is everything's working properly now as well. I'm back live, right? Let me know. Beautiful sunset, by the way, in Malta at the moment, because it is 8:51 here, local time. Beautiful sunset out there. I just check the chat. Yeah, Bromance, thank you so much for joining. It's been a pleasure having you, and I hope to see you next time. I forgot to mention as well, maybe we can get some likes on the video. You want to give me a thumbs up? There's a slight echo, but all good. Oh gosh, I need to investigate that, so sorry about that, guys. Yeah, if you haven't liked the video, maybe if you're enjoying it, please do give it a thumbs up. It lets YouTube know that my content is hopefully good enough to be shared with other people across the internet. Right, let's crack on. Let's do the visor, because this really makes the helmet come to life, really. So, what I did with the visor is I didn't borrow any geometry from the existing helmet or the gasket or anything like that. I started by, let's go back to solid mode. Let's make this a little bit smaller there. And what I did was I added a plane. I started with a plane. John already gave it a thumbs up. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Yeah, let's do, and also, if I may ask or put it out there, if you are enjoying the video, maybe share the video with your friends, other Blender users. Again, that's a great way to show support for the channel and the work that I do. So, without further ado, let's switch to the side view with 3 on the numpad. Let's switch to X-ray mode up here on the right there, and let's add. First of all, let's put our. I think our 3D cursor is there, isn't it? Yeah. So let's go back to the side view, 3 on the numpad. Let's add a plane. So Shift A, mesh, plane. And it's probably, how big is it? I can't even see it. Oh, there it is there. It's sort of wireframe mode. Oh, it's because it's lying flat, isn't it? You can't see it. There it is. It's 2 meters by 2 meters. Or 2 meters, yeah. So let's orientate it according to our view, so we can see it now. And let's scale that down to about there. There's our, let's go to solid mode. There's our plane, let's bring it out to about there. Something like that. Bring it about there, actually. Yeah, let's leave it there for now. We can just move it afterwards anyway. Yeah, let's leave it there. Is it thick enough? I'll give it a bit more thickness. I don't really know how thick these visors are. Again, John, you're the expert here. Maybe perhaps you can let us know in the chat if that visor, how thick is it? Is it a few millimeters or what kind of thickness is it? Right, that said, I've got the plane. Very straightforward. And the only thing I will do on this one is apply the rotation, because we aligned it when I added the plane. I aligned it to the view that I had in the viewport at the time, and that was in the side view. You can see the rotation values are 90, 0, 90. But I do actually want to reset these to 0, and I don't mean 0 here, like enter 0, because that'll put it back to flat again. I want to undo that. I want to apply the rotation. So I'm going to use my add-on and click apply rotation. And now that's 0, 0, 0, but it maintains its orientation there. Or Control A apply rotation. Right, with that said, let's tab into side view again, if you're on the numpad, and let's turn X-ray on, tab into edit mode on the plane, and select in edge mode. I'm going to select this edge on the side here, and I'm going to press E to extrude that and bring it out to about there. Let's go there. I'm saying there because that's where the circle would be, like roughly where that transition is. So it's about there, and just press S to scale it up, something like that. Maybe move it up a little bit. Follows our visor profile. And this one we can scale up as well. Scale it up a touch, or move it up a little bit like this, like that. Now with that one there, let's E to extrude again. Bring it out. Let's bring it out all the way there. Yeah, let's bring it there. And switch into vertex selection. Let's select that one there and move that all the way down here. So the equivalent of the top part. Somewhere there would be. Now obviously this is all wrong here. So we need to, John says in the chat, the visor is about 4mm to 5mm, or 3mm to 4mm. It's quite thick, isn't it? It's half a centimetre. Wow. I guess it needs to be pretty strong, right, in case of any impacts. That's good to know. So, yeah, we'll bear that in mind when we try to model this. Anyway, going back to this, we need to get the profile right. So we need some more edge loops, essentially, some more geometry. So Control R, add a loop cut. I'm going to add 2. So scroll the mouse wheel, you get 2 cuts, and then click, and then right click to leave them in the middle, like that. Now we can move these points to, I don't know, maybe one here, and the other one somewhere like that. So I'll go to turn X-ray off, and now we've got this. Okay? So again, it's all about keeping it really simple. Don't overcomplicate your models, because the more you complicate it, the more control you lose as you're making it. Let's quickly rename that to helmet visor. Lovely. Let's go back to the side view. So we've got that, and we need this to obviously wrap around the helmet as we go along. So I'm going to switch over to edge selection, and let's start off with these ones here. Let's bring these in closer to the helmet. So I'm going to stay in global orientation, transforms. I'm going to bring that in as it clips, bring it out to about there. That will do. Now we can deselect that one and continue working on these two here. So continue doing that. You can see nothing complicated here, quite basic. And you will have to orbit around your model like this until you can see the gap there is roughly where it should be, so maybe about there. And then finally select this one and bring that all the way to the middle, essentially. We want that to be both the top view with 7 on the numpad. We want that to be there. Now I'm not going to eyeball it, because in the top right over here we've got the item. Press N, see that menu. And sometimes it will be on local, sometimes it will be on global. I want the global, not the local, so I'm going to leave it on global, and I'm going to select on the x-axis 0. So 0, enter. That will put it bang in the middle of the world. And the reason we're doing that is because we want to add a mirror modifier. Oops, not material. Oh, okay, I've added the material. Excuse me, let's add a generate mirror modifier. We want that to mirror on the X, which it is. And remember, we added this empty as our mirror object, so we can use that for everything that's mirrored. So select that, use the eyedropper, pick the empty as our mirror source, object source. Now we've got that. We've still got some work to do, clearly, because this is clipping through the visor. Because the side view, it's looking, that is where it should be, that is where it should be. This is a straight line, and it should be more curved. And the reason that's happening is fairly obvious. We don't have enough geometry to play with, or topology. actually pull out and make it curved. So, first of all, I'm going to add another loop cut. Let's tab into edit mode. And we may as well bring this forward, actually just about there, just shy of that gasket. And let's try and get the distance pretty difficult to orbit around sometimes. Just make it about there. And I want to add another cut here. So I'm going to do Control R, add a loop cut, right click to leave it in the middle. And I'm just going to move that according to its normal. That makes it go that way. Bring that out so we get something that resembles a nice curve. And again, looking at the distance, it's still clipping down there, so let's bring that out a bit more. It might be too far here at the top, so you could actually select these points, just like these points here, and bring them in like that, individually. Just leave it like that for now. We can adjust these later on. It's not a problem. So now we've got that. We need to get the curvature as well. Before we do that, let's add a subdivision modifier to smooth it out and make it look really nice. Let's do a subdiv. Give it 3 levels this time, not 2. We have these big gaps between the vertices, and if it's 2, you can still see the jaggies, right? There. It's quite evident it's jagged. I make it 3. Our viewport becomes, let's right click and select shade smooth. So, John, you were asking about the visor. Is this the kind of thing that you would have expected, or did you imagine maybe you use a cylinder or something to make it, or does this kind of make sense? Hopefully. As I'm doing this, you can see now with the sub-D on, that clips through the helmet. So a simple fix, you need to go and adjust these points. So I'm actually going to turn on the subdivision cage, like that. You can see that before we can see the original topology is out here, but if we click this little button, it actually snaps it where it would be if it was subdivided, right? So let's select these points and just move them out. This time we're going to use global, because it clips through on it like that. That's pretty cool. John says he's blowing his mind. Cool. Glad you're enjoying this, buddy. Let's bring these out a little bit. Let's use the normal this time. So now we're getting that nice curvature, from left to right. That's great. But it doesn't really help us with the curvature on the front. So the simple fix to that is to add another loop cut. So I'm going to add 2 actually. And the reason I'm adding 2 is because we're getting squares. And squares are your friend when it comes to subdivision and having good topology. And if I turn off optimal display, you can see we're getting these nice little squares from the larger squares, because it's been subdivided, right, 3 times. That's how that works. So that's exactly what we want. We want these lovely squares. And if I just turn optimal display on again, now all we need to do is, now we've got more geometry to work with, you can select this front face there, go to the side view, and I'm going to use normal orientation again. I'm going to pull that out. It does this really weird snapping for some reason. Let's turn X-ray on. That's jumped all the way out there, which is rather bizarre. I don't know why it's doing that. But you can see the profile is not quite following the helmet either. Not to worry, it's okay. Oh gosh, yeah, okay, I did break it. Undo that. Let's just leave it on global. Go back to the side view and move that like that. Now, this bit's way too out there. So let's turn off the cage, and we're going to close that gap there because it's obviously too big. So let's just select edges this time, these ones here, and go to the side view, and I'm going to just move these in by grabbing them, moving up and up a little bit maybe, something like that. Let's go with that for now. Let's finish off, let's refine the shape of the visor, because we seem to be off our, the shape of that. So let's go grab these vertices here, and rather than just grabbing them and moving them like this, let's turn the cage back on, optimal display. We're going to select GG to slide it, so slide it along that edge there. You can see our curvature following that, of course. Let's do that. So GG, like so. Worry about this in a minute, we'll come back to that. That's looking pretty good. This one over here, GG won't go down unless we press the Alt key. Oops, what am I doing wrong? There. Move it along. In fact, I may need to move that along this way as well. Let's turn off the cage for a moment. GG, move it along this way. Then GG up, Alt, bring it down. Then this one here, GG. Might be hard to see the line, you can see the curvature, you have to see it sometimes. About there, isn't it? Oops, that's that. About there. That one as well, GG, hold down Alt to go the other way. Now we have that. That one go up a little bit. GG, down, Alt, up. Now that's looking like a visor, right? Yeah, stick that. Nice. There's a big gap there. You can see there's a big gap there. I need to fix that. Because that needs to go in a bit where the eye, and then out where the ear bulges, really. Let's tap into edit mode. And we're going to bring all of these guys inwards. Let's just move that in. We don't want to clip. If you go too far, you clip helmet, the gasket. So I'm going to go in a little bit. Then maybe this is the bit where you may need to introduce another loop cut, and I think I did that on my version. So let's do another loop cut here. So Control R, add the loop cut. That gives us more geometry to work with. So we're going to grab maybe these guys here. But before we do that and move these across that way, I'm going to add another loop cut down the middle of this section here. So let's hide the hinges for a minute. And do Control R, add a loop cut in the middle, leave it there. Now select these ones, bring back our hinges, and then move that across like that. Now we can move these guys over a little bit and then in. You can see now we're starting to follow the cage on, starting to follow that recessed area. Do the same for this part here, move that in. It's all about spacing now and just playing around with some of the edge loops and stuff. So maybe this one can go right to right a little bit, turn the cage off. So we can press GG, slide it across a little bit, like that. Let's review how that's looking. A little bit sharp there, I feel. Here is a little bit too aggressive. Yeah, you may need to like select individual points now and start putting these in inwards. So like these ones, for example, here, sticking out quite a bit. Let's select these. And we want them to go on the normals, really, so might as well select these two, normal, and just move them in. Edge. I'm not sure if that's too much, but let's just try that. And these two. And this one here, maybe. There you go. Still not happy with that bit there. That's because these are far too out. That needs to go way in. Let's just do push inwards without clipping bring these ones out a smidge. And these ones to continue that curvature from the front as well. Yeah, that's looking better. Much better. But let's round off the back bit there. If I switch to the side view, having to edit mode, we need these to be rounded, so we can just play around with these verts now and just use GG and not X-ray. So GG, slide them across. You can see the topology there. It goes around this part here. These can go down a little bit, so let's select this edge maybe, and GG. Move it down, slide it down, or down shift for final control. Now we can go back to vertex select mode, and press GG, slide it up along there. Maybe a little bit along this one. Yeah, it's almost there, I think. This one needs to be, go back to global, move that down. And this one can go, but we can use global because this is all flat on this side. All flat on behind the hinge, right? It's not rounded, it needs to be flat against this bit here. So this is the controller really of that. It stops it from going too far. But yeah, anyway, let's just see how that looks. And it is a bit off here, so let's do GG, so GG, then hold down Alt and bring it down. Again, we find the shape, GG, Alt. That looks as though it's actually going under there, so, and over there. Top bit's okay, I think. I'll move these up, smidge. Do you know what, I think I'm going to leave it like that. I think I like this way it's going there. Then I'm fine with that. We do have that nice rounded visor working now. That's really cool. The next step is to add some thickness to this. And I might actually copy this and save it for now. So Shift D, and just move it over there for a minute. And let's focus in on this part, this piece. So what we want to do is, and if I recall correctly, what I did on the original test version was select all of the faces by pressing A. And we know we have the mirror object here. I'm actually gonna apply the mirror modifier. So let's make that a little bit bigger. Let's apply the mirror modifier. Now we have all of this stuff. Let's select all of the faces by pressing A. And we're going to press I, inset. But we don't want it to be individual faces, so let's press I again. That will just inset them. That's not working. Why it's doing that? Don't want individual. Well, that's really weird. Why is that not working? Offset relative. That's weird. It's never happened to me before. Okay, this could be an indicator of a problem. Let's undo that. Let's make sure we head back to this. Let's just check our face orientation. And that is actually okay. Red is blue on the outside, red on the inside. That's okay. But it's not that that's causing that. So let me just do a very quick dummy test. So mesh, just add a cube. Move it over there, scale it up by the scale. And I'm going to tab into the cube and do I to inset. You see nothing's happening. So undo that. Do it again. I to inset. I'll press some buttons and see which one's affecting it. So I'll press I again, get individual. And let's just accept that. Go back to our visor. Press 3, A, I. Don't want individuals, so press I again. There we go. That works. Now we get that. That's what we wanted to do. I don't know why it wasn't working. Before I click away, let's just make sure we have our options here. Offset even. You can see at the bottom there. I don't have that turned on. You get a much bigger gap here than you do here. So that needs to be, offset even needs to be off, which is weird. Very odd. Okay. The point is, as long as it looks right, then you know you're on the right track. Right. So I'm going to leave that as it is. Go with that. Now we have an inset of all these polygons. And the reason I've done that is because on the visor, you have this little rim thickness on the visor. Give it some more rigidity. I didn't say that. Let's get rid of that cube, isn't it? Save our work. And the reason I've created an insert is because I can now, still in face select mode, I can alt click on this vertical edge there, select the face loop that runs all around the rim of that. And let's just turn off the subdivision modifier. And in fact, let me think about this. First, before we do that, let's add some thickness to it. Let's add a solidify modifier. Click add. Let's see where that's going, which direction it's going. Let's even thickness, normal's quality high. Let's increase that. Yeah, it's going inwards that way. That's probably okay. I don't know if it's clipping anywhere, but I turn X-ray on because you'll be able to see. Yeah, you can see the thickness there. John, does that look acceptable to you in terms of thickness? Or is that not thick enough as a visor? Let's turn on sub-D. Maybe put that above there. Yeah. I feel like that might not be thick enough actually. Let's do 0.2. A bit thicker. 0.25. 0.025, which is. Yeah, let's go with that. I think that looks pretty good. Yeah, it looks good, John says. Thank you, mate. Thanks for confirming that. Let's go with that. I think that's okay. As long as it doesn't clip through. Like you can see there, it's barely, I don't think it's touching. Let's hide our reference material. Yeah, I think we're good, that we're almost touching it. So, although it's not a watertight seal, like as John said earlier, I think that's close enough. And we're not really going to see that in any great detail. In fact, at the top, it's perfect. At the bottom, it's slightly off. I mean, we could fix that by selecting these verts here and just move them in. We've got these selected there. We just move those in like that. There we go. That's pretty cool. Great stuff. Right, let's go back to our trim. Now to do that, let's save that. Make a copy again. Move this again. Copy that again. Yeah. Because we now need to get a bit more destructive with our visor. So with that selected, I'm going to apply the solidify modifier. Turn off the sub-D, and of course we have this now, which is fine. Thank you. Got a lovely start there from John. Thanks, buddy. Really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Let's tab into edit mode. We could smooth these out a bit more actually. You can see there, that's why we're getting that bump over here. Yeah, that's a bit close. Not a little bit. Yeah, I think that's fine. Go with that. Yeah, let's just go with it. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, or what I can do is either extrude these out, these faces here, these ones, extrude them outwards, or extrude these ones inwards. So what I think I did on my version is I selected all of the ones on the inside. And I can make that a quick selection by selecting, Alt-clicking these guys, and then Shift-Alt-click to add to the selection. And now I should be able to go to Select, spaces. No. Never mind. I'll make it the other way around. I'll select faces, it's just easier. Let's hide the hinge there. And let's just select these. In fact, use the brush tool. So in select mode or edit mode, press C, get a brush. If I scroll the mouse wheel, it gets bigger and smaller. I can just paint a selection now. Select these faces. And we want more on the other side. Escape from that, just right click and then press C again, add to the selection. Right click, navigate around, press C, add these. Now we've got that, we can very easily press Alt-E, extrude faces along normals. Then hold down Shift, don't click through the other side, go something like that. In fact, I want to keep it about there, fairly in. The reason for that is because I want to keep the thickness. Select these faces on the outside, go all the way around, and just press Alt-S, scale them along their normals. So there we go. I don't know if this trim goes all the way here, but I'll do that anyway. So now we've got that, we turn on the sub-D, turn off wireframe. We now have this visor with its bulbous edge, I don't know what you call it, you got trim on the edges. Turn back on our reference image. So now we've got something that resembles this. Ours is not as thick, but I think you get the idea anyway. It's the principle that matters more at this point. You can tighten this up a bit more if you want. But we could just try selecting these faces on the inside there. And if we do Alt-S again, you can actually bring them in and add the thickness. Alt-S will scale them along the normals. There you go. Flared edge. Thanks, John. My English is terrible. Never find the right word when I need it. Flared edge. That's the one. Exactly what it is. And John also adds amazing work. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you. But I think I will leave it there. And the icing on the cake, really, to really get the dopamine hit from doing all this hard work, let's add a material to this, make it look like actual glass, which is really important. Now, I did puff around with this material a little bit when I was making it. Now, you could just literally get rid of this one, right? You could do that. Add a shader glass, BSDF, plug that into this surface. Now you've got your glass visor, right? Which is pretty cool. But that's not what we see in the reference material. In the reference, you can see it's kind of dark. But it could just literally, hopefully, turn down the colour of that glass. We still want to keep it transmission, we want to see through it, right? Like that. I think that's looking pretty decent. So after that, it's a case of tweaking some of the values here. For example, IOR, the index of refraction. Yeah, thanks, John. Wow, he says. Yeah, you really get a sense of satisfaction by doing that. Just makes everything like come to life. Let's bring back our hinge. In fact, let's move that hinge now, because it should be right up against that there a little bit. So let's Press T to bring back the side menu. And let's just move that, make sure we're in global. Go to studio. Sorry, solid mode. Top view. Bring that in. Around there. There's our hinge. That's looking really, really nice. I'm really pleased with that. You may notice you've got these dark patches under there. That's because if I switch to another HDRI here, maybe, I like this one here, those dark patches are still there, but they're a different shape now. That's because these are actually shadows from the glass object. If you don't want that, and you probably should have it on there, if you don't want that, you can go to the object properties, go to visibility, and turn off shadow. If you keep your eye on here, I turn that off, that becomes absolutely clear now. But it doesn't look as realistic, so maybe keeping that on is a better idea, I think. So anyway, this is my glass material. Why is that? Well, I made that black, but clearly I haven't. I don't know if I did that for my test. I don't think I did actually. Let's have a look at the one I did in my initial test. In fact, the visor is slightly different. It's pretty much the same, but I think I may have added a loop, support loop somewhere. Make that a bit more hard-edged, like that. Ah yeah, I added a bevel. You can see I added a bevel modifier there. So if you don't want it to be soft like this, add a bevel modifier, and that will tighten up all of these edges for you, make it a bit more hard. Anyway, going back to the material, render this one, turn off the overlays. You can see we have this glass, we can still see through it, and it's pretty dark. But I did use that. I did Google the index of refraction. So the roughness is 0.05 here. I've got like a grey colour, might as well copy that value and use it on this one. I made it slightly more grey. Roughness was 0.05, if I remember correctly, but not 100% effective. Shiny, I should say. The IOR was slightly higher. Not familiar with IORs. Let me just load up very quick browser window. IOR. You can read that in your own time, but if you go to IOR index of refraction list, for example, just Google it, you get a whole list of materials that, let's close my other browser there, minimize it. So this will show you all of the IOI values for different materials in the world. But what you were looking for here is like, I think it's not pure glass, because that'd be dangerous to the rider. It's made of a plastic composite, I believe. I did Google it. Like, what is a helmet visor made of? Yeah, polycarbonate, that's the word I'm looking for. So, I don't know if we have polycarbonate in the, polycarbonate, oops. Just copy that, I have to type it in. So, do we have one here? Let's do a find search. There we go, polycarbonate, yeah. Okay, I went with 1.584. So we copy that, don't need this anymore, close that. We can put that into the IOR. Not a huge difference, but if you're after realism, this is what you need to do. And I can see a problem here. Look, you can see the visor is clipping through that part of the earpiece there. As a quick fix, select these edges. Hopefully it's a quick fix. Select these and move them up. There we go. Hopefully that hasn't gone through our that should be straight really. So ideally you want these to be straight, right? So turn off the sub-D, digital wireframe, and you want these, just select vertex mode and select all of these, and oops, 7 top view, and bring them into line with the other one. So the front view, oops, front view, full screen, control space bar makes it full screen. You can see there, just to make that line up like that, that's good enough. Control space bar, come out of full screen, bring these two guys back, put them up against the link is there. Solid mode. It's about there. There we go. Yeah, there we go. No clipping. Right. Sunday is almost done. It's 9:30. I haven't eaten. So I will conclude this streaming session today. In the next one, and it will be the final one for this helmet model, so I hope you've enjoyed. I will be finishing off this stud here, the screw that goes in the centre of the hinge, and also add some padding inside. You don't really want to see all of this good stuff in the mid, you won't see that inside. It needs to be some sort of padding. We're not going to go too crazy with it, we're just going to make some overall padding that would look good enough to sell the product really, right? Sell the illusion of padding. So, but yeah, let's wrap it up there. I hope you enjoyed that. I really did. I always enjoy sharing what I'm doing, and I hope you do too. Oops, opacity, you can see the room that we're in here. Turn up our reference. There's our helmet. Looking good. I hope you'd agree. Happy with that. Okay guys, let me see if I can figure out how to end this stream. All it takes me to say now is thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate all your support, and yeah, if you like the video, share it with a friend. You never know, they might like it too. So I will see you during the week, and I will schedule another stream, possibly Monday or Tuesday evening. So yeah, I'll keep an eye on my channel anyway, and you might see it there, hopefully. Right, enough said. Again, thanks to all those who joined. Really appreciate your support. Yeah, me too, John. Can't wait for the next one. Thank you so much, man. Let's click end stream and see what happens. For now, thank you so much. All the best. See you soon.